Chapter 39-23. Madman looked at Longqin's back and suddenly thought of something. He turned to Longchen and asked, "Why did I see you come back alone? Where's the princess of the Divine Kingdom?" "The princess of the Divine Kingdom?" Longchen was slightly stunned and asked suspiciously, "Isn't she with you? Why are you asking me?" "Pretend. Keep pretending." Madman sneered. "Why should I pretend? I really didn't see her." Longchen shook his head. Madman sneered and asked, "Then why did you go to hell?" "I was bored and went to enjoy the scenery of hell. Can't I?" Longchen asked. "You don't want to tell me? Okay. I'll let old Qin come and find you personally." After saying that, Madman opened a space-time tunnel and prepared to leave. He thought that Longchen would definitely stop him after hearing this, but Longchen didn't. He just watched Madman leave quietly. 3 days later, "I'll bring the blood demons over. Don't let me see another dragon." Madman had no choice but to leave these words and entered the space-time tunnel without looking back. After Madman left, Longchen looked up at the sky with a complicated expression. The land of heavy regions. Phone people. Not long after, Longqin descended on the land of the phone people. "Greetings, Your Highness." A group of old antiques from the phone people immediately ran out with respectful expressions. If it was in the past, they would definitely scold him immediately. Why did he come to the phone people? But now, Longqin showed amazing strength and lost Feng Ho's backing. They no longer had the courage. Longqin glanced at the group of people and said indifferently, "Within 3 days, I want to see you phone people move out of here." "Move out of here?" The group of old antiques was stunned and asked suspiciously, "Your Highness, what do you mean?" "Stupid." Longqin's face was full of disdain. "You don't even understand what I'm saying? You must be stupid." He said, "What I mean is that the dragons have taken a liking to the upper heavy region. You have to give up this place." "What? You dragons want to occupy the ancestral land of the phone people?" The group of old antiques finally reacted and glared at Longqin. "Yes." Longqin nodded. "On what basis? Madman told you to move out of the dragon nest, so you came to occupy our phoenix nest. What kind of logic is this? Do you think we are easy to bully?" The group of old antiques was seething with anger. "Yes. I think you guys are easy to bully, so what?" In front of Longchen, she was an obedient girl, but in front of outsiders she was different. Arrogant and despotic were not enough to describe her. "You've gone too far, you've gone too far." Seeing Longqin's undisguised attitude, the group of antiques flew into a rage. "Don't think so highly of yourself. I don't even have the mood to bully trash like you. Remember, you only have 3 days. Otherwise you'll be exterminated." Longqin smiled contemptuously, and a death precept appeared with monstrous power, surging toward the group of old antiques. Then, without waiting to see the result, he turned around and left directly. "Get out of the way." The group of old antiques' faces changed drastically, and they hurriedly fled for their lives. Boom. The death precept blasted into the mountain below. The area with a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles was instantly razed to the ground. Although the group of old antiques fled quickly, they were also affected by the shockwave. They all spat out mouthfuls of blood, and their faces turned pale. However, compared to their injuries, Longqin's attitude angered them more. Why did he ask them to move out of the heavy region? If he had the ability, he should go and settle the score with Madman. The phone people are finished. Around them, there were also many people gathered. There were men and women, old and young. They all saw this scene with their own eyes. Everyone's faces were full of despair, especially the children of the phone people. Their faces were pale, and their bodies were trembling in extreme fear. "Who said that the phone people are finished? Stop right there." The group of old antiques, who were already angry, immediately became furious when they heard the desperate voices of their people. However, none of the people present uttered a word. Their eyes were incomparably miserable. "Shut up, all of you. The people who bullied us are dragons. If you want to vent your anger, go find them. Why are you yelling at your own people? Do you only know how to fight among yourselves?" The white-haired old woman flew over and looked at the group of old antiques angrily. His words made the group of old antiques feel ashamed and unable to show their faces. This is all our own fault. The white-haired old woman glanced at the shattered ground below, and then looked at the despairing people around her with a bitter smile on her face. What should the Feng people do now? Do they really have to leave the heavy region? Although the Sky Cloud realm was very big, apart from the heavy region, she really couldn't think of any other place where the Feng people could take shelter. The Eastern continent, the Western continent, the Northern continent, and the Southern continent were all the territories of the human race. Now the human race had the Feather Emperor and the Blood Ancestor. With the relationship between the Feng people and the two, it was impossible for the Feng people to enter the 4 continents. The Sky Cloud realm? That was also the territory of the little rabbit. It was even more impossible for the little rabbit to take them in. Apart from that, there were 3 other forbidden areas left. However, the lunatic had already said that even the dragons had to leave the land of the Een demons, and the Death Glacier was the territory of the Kirin clan. The remaining land of the buried gods was empty now, but who dared to go there? The land of the buried gods was now the battlefield between the Divine Kingdom and the Sky Cloud realm. Not to mention the people below. Even the white-haired old woman couldn't help but feel despair. The glorious Feng people, who were originally in charge of a forbidden area, couldn't even find a place to stay now. It was really sad. Were the Feng people really going to die? Wadahong. Suddenly, a shout was heard. Everyone followed the voice and saw a white-haired old man clenching his hands with a trace of decisiveness in his eyes. What's wrong? Wadahong looked at the white-haired old man and asked. The white-haired old man said, "You are Huo Wenchang's father and Huo Wu's grandfather. Go find them and ask them to help." Are we really going to find them? Some of the old antiques were immediately unhappy. What's wrong? Could it be that you have a way to solve the current problem? If you really have a way, fine, this old man will listen to you. You can do whatever you want. The white-haired old man said angrily. The group of people fell silent. The white-haired old man sighed and said, "Look at the people around you." The group of people raised their heads and looked at the people around them. Their eyes trembled slightly. At this moment, the surrounding clansmen were looking at them with eyes filled with disappointment. You can't even protect the clan's land. As the elders of the Feng people, as the hope in the eyes of the people, don't you feel that you have failed? 3 days ago, I suggested to find Huo Wenchang and Huo Wu, but did you listen? Not only did you not listen, but you also said that you were inviting wolves into the house? Now think about it again. Isn't that ridiculous? Do you still remember what I said to you before I left? If we don't invite the father and daughter back, the Feng people will be finished sooner or later. Did you believe me? You didn't believe me either. But what about now? Tell me, how far are the Feng people from being finished? Look at all of you. All of you are selfish and only think about yourselves. You don't think about the future of the Feng people at all. You don't think about the safety of the people. You still have the face to call yourselves virtuous and respected? Yes. I admit that I was selfish too. When Feng Ho snatched the inheritance, I didn't speak up for Huo Wu. But now I know that I was wrong. But what about you? You're still stubborn even now. Do you really have to wait until the day the Feng people are finished before you come to your senses? Aren't you afraid of becoming the sinners of the Feng people? The white-haired old man shouted angrily. He was heartbroken. Such a powerful Feng people had been tormented to such a state. It was really a joke. Everyone lowered their heads. Their faces were filled with pain. Actually, when I think about it, this matter was originally Feng Ho's fault. Fire Dance, this child, has always been silently suffering grievances. If Feng Ho hadn't given the Frost Sparrow sword to Bing Changtian and his daughter, which crossed her bottom line, I'm afraid this child wouldn't have done anything rebellious. Yes, she hasn't done anything wrong. We are the ones at fault. So now we only have ourselves to blame for everything. We can't blame anyone else. The white-haired old woman sighed deeply. That's right. We can only blame ourselves for being too selfish. But now it's not too late to make up for it. As long as we sincerely repent, I believe this child will forgive us. Hodahong, you have to find her. No matter what, You have to bring her and her father back because they are the only hope of the Feng people now. The white-haired old man looked at Hua Dahong and said in a deep voice. Hua Dahong struggled for a moment and sighed softly. He nodded and said, "All right, I'll go, but I can't guarantee it. After all, what we did this time really hurt Wuer's heart. Just do your best. But we also have to be prepared for the worst." Judging from Longqin's attitude, the dragons definitely have no room for negotiation. It's imperative that they take over our clan's land. So we still have to be thick-skinned and find the Feather Emperor, the Blood Ancestor, the Little Rabbit, and the Kirin clan. Let's see if we can ask them to give us a place to stay temporarily. The white-haired old man said. I agree. The white-haired old woman nodded, because at this point, there was no better way. Although this was a very embarrassing thing, they couldn't care less about it now. Besides, the Feng people were like stray dogs now. Did they still have any dignity to speak of? No one has any objections, right? The white-haired old man glanced at the group of old antiques. Everyone looked at each other and shook their heads in the end. Then let's split up. As the white-haired old man waved his hand, the group of old antiques either opened a space-time passage or activated a space-time teleportation divine artifact and quickly left. Sigh. I hope the Feng people can successfully survive this calamity. After the group of people left, the white-haired old man turned to look at the white-haired old woman and shook his head and sighed deeply. We will. The white-haired old woman smiled comfortingly. But would it really happen? She didn't have the confidence herself. This was just a sentence to comfort the people around her. Chapter 39-24. In the evening. Qilin Holy Land. Dad, someone is looking for you outside. A young man in a purple robe quickly walked into a large hall. He looked at a middle-aged man sitting at the front of the hall and said, Looking for me? The middle-aged man was stunned. Yes. The young man in purple nodded. Who is it? The middle-aged man was suspicious. It seems to be someone from the Ice Phoenix clan. The young man in purple pursed his lips, as if he was extremely disdainful of the Ice Phoenix clan. Ice Phoenix clan? The middle-aged man murmured and asked, Where are they now? Just outside the exit. The young man in purple said. Okay. I'll go take a look. The middle-aged man nodded, got up and walked outside. I'll go too. The young man in purple hurriedly followed. This father and son pair was Qi Xiong and Qi Yu. Very soon, the father and son came to the exit of the Qilin Holy Land and saw two figures standing above the glacier outside. When Qi Xiong saw the two of them, his eyes flashed slightly and he smiled faintly. So it's the two old seniors of the Ice Phoenix clan. Sorry for the disrespect. As a reclusive old antique of the Feng people, his seniority was naturally above Qi Xiong. However, Qi Xiong would no longer be as polite to the current Feng people as before. Although he called them old seniors, his words were full of disdain. And this disdain was also seen in the eyes of the two people of the Ice Phoenix clan, but they did not dare to say anything. If it was in the past, if Qi Xiong dared to have such an attitude, he would definitely fly into a rage on the spot. But now, the Feng people were no longer the same as before. Even if Qi Xiong rode on their heads and behaved atrociously, they could only endure it. After sorting out their feelings, the two of them also smiled and greeted Qi Xiong, saying, Brother Qi Xiong, long time no see. You're in good spirits. It's fine, it's fine. Qi Xiong waved his hand and smiled, saying suspiciously, Why are the two of you here? Brother Qi Xiong, aren't you asking the obvious? The two of them shook their heads and sighed. Qi Xiong's eyes flashed and he smiled. I really don't know, please enlighten me. Dad. Is there a need to say it? They must be here to seek asylum. Qi Yu, who was standing below, glanced at the two of them. Did the two of them hear that? Their faces turned green and red at the same time. Even a junior like this dared to humiliate them in front of their faces? Yu, don't be rude. Qi Xiong raised his eyebrows and glared at Qi Yu. Then he turned to look at the two ice phoenixes. He smiled apologetically and said, My son is naughty? Please forgive me. I'm fine. Your son is also a true man. The two waved their hands and laughed. How frustrating. They clearly knew that the other party was mocking them. But he couldn't get angry. He even had to flatter her. If it was in the past, how could he endure such vexation? Qi Xiong smiled and said, "Then tell me, why are the two of you looking for me? What are you trying to do?" "I won't hide it from you, little brother. We really are here to ask for help." The two of them sighed. As expected, when Qi Yu heard this, a sneer crept up on his face. Qi Xiong's eyes twinkled as he asked, "Aren't the Feng people doing well now? Why are you asking for help?" These words were a little sarcastic. Feng Ho had died. The sovereign divine weapon had also left with Huo Wenchang and his daughter. How could the Feng people be doing well? But the two of them were still not angry. "Brother, you don't know. Although Feng Ho has died, Ho Wu, that traitor, she also took away all the sovereign divine weapons. But during this period, the Feng people have been relatively calm. But it was just today. The people of Longqing came to the Feng people and said that they want our land. They asked us to move out of the Feng people within 3 days. Don't you think that they are bullying us?" The two of them said angrily. "What? The dragons want to occupy your land?" Qi Xiong was stunned. Qi Yu's face was also filled with shock. They really didn't know about this. Because Longqing went to the phoenix nest alone during the day, and there were no outsiders present at that time, so the news hadn't spread. Yes. The two of them nodded. How is this possible? No matter how unreasonable they are, they can't occupy other people's land. Did you do something to offend the dragons? Qi Xiong frowned. "Brother, do you think we are stupid? The brother and sister who are guarding the dragons now are even more terrifying than the Dragon King. No matter how bold the Feng people are, we don't dare to offend them." The two of them smiled bitterly. "Then why?" Qi Xiong was puzzled. One of the old antiques sighed and said, "You should have heard that Madman Mo wants to occupy the dragon nest, right?" "Yes." Qi Xiong nodded and said with a frown, "Do you mean that Longqing occupying the phoenix nest has something to do with this?" "Of course. Madman Mo asked the dragons to leave the dragon nest, so the dragons will definitely choose another land. So, the dragons have their eyes on the phoenix nest." The two of them said with righteous indignation. "Why would they target you?" Qi Xiong was puzzled. Qi Yu walked to Qi Xiong's side and mocked without hiding it. "Father, you are really smart but stupid at this time. The dragons will target the Feng people. It must be because the Feng people are too weak now. Without Feng Ho, without the sovereign divine weapon, the Feng people were already at the bottom of the sky cloud realm. If they didn't bully them, who would they bully?" Qi Xiong's heart trembled. This was really hitting a dog when it was down. However, even if he was a selfish person, he couldn't help but want to say that they deserved it. The Feng people's current sorry state was completely their own fault. If these people had treated Huo Wenchang and his daughter better in the beginning, would the Feng people have reached this point? No. Because as long as Fire Dance was in the Feng people, even if Feng Ho fell, the Feng people's current status would not change. Maybe they were even stronger than when Feng Ho was here. The reason was simple. Fire Dance's relationship with Qin Feiyang and the others was too good. And she was still lovers with the golden-winged Wolf King. With this relationship, the Feng people would definitely be able to get the support of Qin Feiyang and the others. In the current Sky Cloud realm, who would dare to ignore Qin Feiyang and the others? A casual word from them could keep the Feng people peaceful forever. Naturally, they would not be bullied by the dragons now. Faced with Qi Yu's repeated insults, the two old antiques from the Ice Dragon clan tried their best to endure it. They looked at Qi Xiong and pleaded, "Brother, no matter what, please lend a helping hand in this matter. After all, the relationship between our two clans has always been good. The other party is the dragons. What can I help you with?" Qi Xiong shook his head and sighed. The strength of Longchen and Longqin was obvious to all. Even the geniuses of the Divine Kingdom were not their opponents. Who would dare to provoke them? As for the relationship between the Feng people and the Qilin clan, it was a joke. Who didn't know that the three clans all had their own ulterior motives? Of course we don't dare to ask Brother Qi Xiong to look for the dragons. We only hope that the Qilin clan can give the Feng people a place to stay in the Death Glacier. Their faces were full of pleading. Are you really planning to give up the phoenix nest? Qi Xiong was stunned. What else can we do? Longqin has already said that if we don't leave the phoenix nest in 3 days, the Feng people will be annihilated. The two sighed. I don't dare to doubt Longqin's words. After all, she has the strength to do so. Qi Xiong nodded. Yes. 3 ultimate profundities and a mid-level sovereign weapon. Who dares to go against her? The two felt helpless. How did they provoke these fiends? This. You should look for my nephew Qi Xiaoyan, right? After all, he is the one who can make the decisions for the Qilin clan now. Qi Xiong frowned. At the mention of Qi Xiaoyan, both Qi Xiong and Qi Yu had a displeased expression. We've thought about it. But after considering his relationship with Qin Feiyang, we don't want to take the risk. We still want to ask for your help. After all, you have a high status in the Qilin clan. You should be able to make the decision for such a small matter. Moreover, we promise that so long as you agree, the Ice Phoenix clan will follow your lead in the future. Qi Xiong was stunned. When Qi Xiong heard this, he was stunned. Was he pledging loyalty to him? The two old antiques glanced at the father and son duo and said, We all know about the grudges between you two and Qin Feiyang's group. We also hate them. As the saying goes, the enemy of an enemy is a friend. Moreover, if we join forces, our chances of success will definitely be greater. Moreover, for brother, there won't be any losses. When Qi Xiong heard this, he could not help being tempted. Father, we only need to find a place for them in the Death Glacier to gain the support of the Ice Phoenix clan. This is indeed a good thing. Moreover, haven't you always wanted to fight for power with Qi Xiaoyan? If we want to fight for power with him, we need a faction of our own. Qi Yu transmitted. Qi Xiong was tempted. What are you doing here? Suddenly, a cold voice rang out. The four were alarmed. They hurriedly looked down and saw an old man standing below. It was the old man with the white beard. Why is this damned old man here? Has he been monitoring our movements? Qi Yu was bewildered. Qi Xiong's heart trembled. Monitoring their movements? If that was the case, it was definitely Qi Xiaoyan's idea. In other words, Qi Xiaoyan was already wary of them. At that thought, Qi Xiong's scalp went numb. Leave. The Feng people's matter has nothing to do with the Qilin clan. Moreover, the Death Glacier is too small. We can't accommodate so many people from the Feng people. The old man glanced at Qi Xiong and his son before looking at the two old fogies. Old man. The two old fogies turned pale with fright. There's no need to say anything. Don't ever come to the Qilin sacred ground again. The old man waved his hand. The two old fogies then looked at Qi Xiong. Qi Xiong frowned. The old man said coldly, Don't look at him. He can't make the decision. Leave immediately. Otherwise, don't blame me for not caring about our old friendship. Qi Xiong clenched his fists. Was he really treating Qi Xiaoyan as the master of the Qilin sacred ground? Fine. You win. The two old fogies were also furious. They turned and left angrily after saying that. They had shamelessly come here to ask for help, but they were treated like this. How hateful. After the two old fogies left, the old man looked at Qi Xiong and his son with an unsightly expression. Don't you know that the Feng people are trying to drag us down? Old man, don't be angry. My father didn't agree to it. Qi Yu smiled awkwardly. Chapter 39-25. The white-bearded old man looked at Qi Yu and shook his head. Forget about it. The only reason Shaoran has been giving in to you and tolerating you is because we are brothers. Did they think he was an old fool? Who couldn't see through the schemes in their hearts? Yes, yes, yes. Qi Yu nodded repeatedly. Nonsense. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Take care of yourselves. Don't end up like Bing Changtian and his daughter. The white-bearded old man left behind a meaningful sentence, then turned around and left without looking back. He's too arrogant. What right does an outsider have to lecture us? Qi Yu was infuriated. Qi Xiong stared at the white-bearded old man's back with boundless hatred in his eyes. Deep in the forest, inside a tea garden, Qi Xiaoyan was pruning the leaves of the tea trees in the garden. His white clothes were spotless, and his long hair fluttered in the wind. He looked like the son of a god, emanating an ethereal aura. A woman in red was accompanying him at all times. She was Qi Xiaoyan's personal maid Xiaoying. Young master, what time is it now? Why are you still in the mood to do such useless things? Xiaoying looked at Qi Xiaoyan with dissatisfaction. Everyone else was cultivating diligently, trying their best to increase their strength. Yet this person was still as carefree as ever. He did not seem nervous at all. You don't understand, do you? Everyone has their own cultivation method. Qi Xiaoyan smiled calmly. Don't tell me you're cultivating right now? Xiaoying was speechless. Silly girl, you don't have to lock yourself up to cultivate. You can walk around more, see more, and maintain a calm state of mind. Perhaps you can find an opportunity to enter an epiphany. Epiphany is the fastest way to increase one's strength. Qi Xiaoyan shook his head. Yes, I won't deny that. But you've been busy for so long, yet you haven't entered an epiphany. Xiaoying pouted. If it's so easy to enter an epiphany, wouldn't everyone in the world have grasped the ultimate profundity of a supreme law? Accompanied by a hoarse laugh, the white-bearded old man stepped through the air and landed in the tea garden. Teacher, you're back. Qi Xiaoyan turned to look at the white-bearded old man. Yes. The white-bearded old man nodded. How are the father and son doing these days? Qi Xiaoyan asked with a smile. Not so good. The white-bearded old man shook his head and recounted what he had seen and heard in detail. What? They actually want to collude with the Ice Phoenix clan? Littling raised his eyebrows. Qi Xiaoyan remained calm as he continued pruning the leaves. Xiaoyan, what do you think? The white-bearded old man asked. Not long after the lunatic went to the dragon's nest, the dragons began to target the Feng people. Obviously, this matter must be related to the lunatic. We can't casually interfere in matters related to this madman. We'll talk about it later. The Feng people have only themselves to blame for their current situation. They don't deserve any sympathy. Qi Xiaoyan shook his head. This old man thinks so too, but Qi Xiong and his son. The white-bearded old man frowned. He had a feeling that there were two hidden dangers. Qi Xiaoyan smiled and said, Our Qilin race can no longer endure any turmoil. All hidden dangers must be nipped in the bud. Littling looked at Qi Xiaoyan in astonishment. He could decide a person's life and death just by talking and laughing. Was this still the young master she used to know? On the other side, the people who had gone to look for Feather Emperor, Blood Ancestor, and the little rabbit were all rejected and returned in disappointment. When they returned to the Feng people and reported the situation to the white-haired old man and the white-bearded old woman, the two felt helpless. They could only pray that Hua Dahong would be able to find something. However, on the evening of the second day, Hua Dahong returned. He was not happy at all. Instead, he was furious. Their eyelids twitched when they saw Hua Dahong's expression, but they still held a trace of hope. The white-haired old woman asked, How did it go? Let alone help, I didn't even see them. Hua Dahong said angrily. Why? Everyone was puzzled. Hua Dahong said angrily. We don't even know where they are now. Then go look for the Devil Palace. With the relationship between the three giants of the Devil Palace and them, they definitely know where they are. The white-bearded old man frowned. Of course I know where to look for them. And for the past 2 days, I've been begging them at the Devil Palace. But no matter how much I begged, they didn't reveal the whereabouts of Qin Feiyang and the others. If it weren't for the sovereign divine weapon, I would have razed the Devil Palace to the ground. Hua Dahong was furious. When the white-haired old woman heard this, her expression changed drastically. She hurriedly said, Don't do that. With the relationship between the Devil Palace and Qin Feiyang and the others, if you really do that, it will definitely bring disaster to the Feng people. I know. Hua Dahong waved his hand and looked at everyone. Then what should we do now? What else can we do? We can only leave the Feng people first and think of a way. The white-bearded old man sighed. Wait. Suddenly, the white-haired old woman looked at Hua Dahong and asked, Did you contact Fire Dance directly? Yes. Fire Dance, Wenchang Zihue. I tried to send a message to them, but none of them responded to me. What a bunch of unfilial children. Hua Dahong was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. Sigh. It seems that they want to completely cut off their relationship with us. Then arrange for our clansmen to retreat first. The white-haired old woman sighed. Where to? The white-haired old man asked. Land of the buried gods. The white-haired old woman struggled for a moment before spitting out these 4 words with difficulty. Her voice was filled with bitterness and helplessness. Land of the buried gods. Core area. When Madman returned that day, he informed Qin Feiyang about Long Chen's return. But the key point was Pei Dason had been monitoring the outside, but he did not see the princess of the Divine Kingdom appear. Therefore, it could be seen that the princess of the Divine Kingdom did not return with Long Chen. As for Long Chen saying that he didn't know, it was purely bullshit. The fire python had seen it with his own eyes in the Nether King's hell. How could it be fake? Moreover, on the same day, Madman went to the Nether King's hell alone. Firstly, it was to confirm whether the princess of the Divine Kingdom was still in the Great Qin. Secondly, it was to transfer the blood demon race from the Nether King's hell. In fact, Qin Feiyang was opposed to transferring the blood demon race. How should he put it? The blood demon race's overall strength was too weak. Bringing them to the Sky Cloud realm might not be a good thing. After all, the Sky Cloud realm was facing a strong enemy, the Divine Kingdom. It was safer for the blood demon race to stay in the Nether King's hell. But Madman also had his own ideas. The sooner he brought the blood demon race to the Sky Cloud realm, the sooner he could get rid of the shackles of the Nether King's hell. In other words, in the future, the cultivation of the blood demon race would not be limited to the Perfection 9 Heavens realm. Regarding this, Qin Feiyang did not say much, because Madman was the reincarnation of the Blood Demon King. It was his right and freedom to arrange the blood demon race. Moreover, according to Madman, King Yu, Big Shui, and the others were also eager to return to the Sky Cloud realm after learning about the history of the blood demon race. Even King Yu and the others wanted to return to the Sky Cloud realm. As an outsider, it was naturally not good for him to interfere too much. 3 days passed. Madman arrived in the sky above the dragon nest as expected. The dragons had already left, not leaving behind a single crystal vein. It was empty. Moreover, the barrier of the heavenly god sword had also disappeared. The entire core area was filled with a layer of Yin demon power. The flowers, plants, and trees had all decayed under the erosion of the Yin demon power. It was like a purgatory of death. However, all of this did not affect the blood demon race much, because like Madman, the Yin demon power was also helpful to their cultivation. However, the Yin demon power was far more terrifying than the evil power. With their current cultivation, they were still unable to absorb and refine it without restraint. Therefore, after Madman arrived at the dragon nest, he once again set up a barrier to isolate the Yin demon power. Only a small amount of Yin demon power was left, allowing the blood demon race to slowly adapt. Returning to their ancestral homeland, King Yu and the others were also filled with emotion. They never thought that the blood demon race would have such a glorious moment. Even more so, they never thought that the blood demon race was once the overlord of the Sky Cloud realm. After settling everything, Madman gave King Yu some instructions and left the Yin demon land. The dragons had also entered the Phoenix Nest. They officially changed the name to Dragon Nest and announced to the outside world that the Death Glacier would be the dragon's home in the future. Black Tortoise Realm. Seeing Madman return, Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "Now your wish has been fulfilled." Madman nodded with a smile as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Qin Feiyang asked, "The imprints of the creatures of the Nether King's hell have been removed, right?" "Of course. Moreover, the remaining evil power of the Nether King's hell has been absorbed by me. Now the creatures of the Nether King's hell are the same as us, able to absorb essence to cultivate." Madman nodded. "What about the blood demon race?" Qin Feiyang asked. "Their imprints have also been removed. However, this will not affect their ability to absorb the evil power. On the contrary, not only can they absorb the evil power, but they can also absorb the essence of heaven and earth. It's just that in the future, they will no longer be able to borrow the power of the source of all evil. It can be said that there are gains and losses." Madman sighed. "They were able to borrow the power of the source of all evil before you merged with it. Now that you have merged with it, they shouldn't be able to borrow this power even if they want to." Qin Feiyang was suspicious. "That's right. Madman nodded. The Een demon power of the Een demon land isn't endless. In the past, it was because no one could absorb it that the Een demon power existed. Now, with the return of the blood demon race, won't they sooner or later absorb all the Een demon power? Qin Feiyang frowned. That's for sure. However, I also have a hunch that the blood demon race will be like me in the end. After the evil power and the Een demon power merge, it will transform into the blood demon power. This can also strengthen their strength. As for the Een demon power, it doesn't matter whether it exists or not. In any case, they can now absorb the essence of heaven and earth and even refine soul stones. If they really want the evil power, it's very simple. Now that I control the source of all evil, I can control all the evil power. As long as I want, the evil power of the sky cloud boundary can gather in the Een demon land at any time. Moreover, I can also create an endless stream of evil power. Chapter 39-26. Amazing! Qin Feiyang's face was filled with admiration. Just as the Feather Emperor said, controlling the source of all evil was like a god controlling all evil. Moreover, the source of all evil wasn't a divine technique, law, or battle soul. Perhaps even Long Chen's god's domain couldn't suppress the source of all evil. Perhaps even the Eye of Heaven couldn't replicate it. What about the princess of the divine kingdom? Did you find her? Qin Feiyang asked. Yes. She's really in the Great Qin. Although she's hiding her cultivation, I can see that she's at the small success sovereign realm. It seems like it's as you guessed. The 3 inheritances that she gave to Yun Xiang were forcefully taken from her body. The madman nodded. Sigh. Qin Feiyang sighed. Why bother? The madman continued. However, I didn't disturb her, so she doesn't know that I went to the Great Qin. Then, did she acknowledge the people of the Qin clan? Qin Feiyang asked. From the conversation between her and your parents, it seems like she didn't acknowledge them. The madman shook his head and smiled. Right, the emperor of the Great Qin is no longer your father, but your younger brother, Qin Haoyan. Is that true? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Of course it's true. However, according to what I heard, it seems that your father spent a lot of effort to let him inherit the throne. In the end, it seems that your parents sneaked out of the imperial capital and hid in a small place on the forgotten continent. They threw a lot of trouble in the imperial capital to him, forcing him to deal with the country's affairs. Later, when your parents returned to the imperial capital, they didn't discuss it with Qin Haoyan and directly announced their abdication. Your younger brother was stunned on the spot, and by the time he reacted, it was already too late. The madman chuckled. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. The other princes were all eagerly eyeing the throne, but this brat was different. He had to be swindled by his old father in order to force him to submit. Madman took out a jar of divine wine and moistened his throat before asking. Then what's the situation with the Feng people? You'll have to ask Elder Hua. I asked him to send someone to keep an eye on the Feng people's movements. Qin Feiyang took out the divine sound transmission stone. Very soon, Elder Hua appeared. Old man, how are the Feng people now? Madman bared his teeth and asked. Just now a subordinate came to report. After the Feng people left the phoenix nest, they ran to the land of buried gods. Elder Hua said. Ah. Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other. These people were too bold. They even dared to go to the land of buried gods. Didn't they know that the land of buried gods was now the battlefield between the Sky Cloud realm and the Divine Kingdom? Would they have gone to the land of buried gods unless they had no other choice? Elder Hua shook his head and smiled bitterly. He looked at Madman speechlessly and said, Brat, don't you think that's a bit of a bad idea? They asked for it, Yi Zichen said. I want to see how long they can last. Madman smiled disdainfully. They can't hold on anymore. Hua Dahong personally came to the Demon Palace to ask about your whereabouts. His attitude is so humble that even this old man is a bit flattered. Elder Hua shook his head. I'll have to talk to you about this. Madman seriously looked at Elder Hua and said, Right now, you have us as your backers. It is only right for him to be humble before you. Elder Hua was stunned. He shook his head and laughed. It was really like the old saying, 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west. Back then, the Demon Palace was the backing of Qin Feiyang and Madman. Now Qin Feiyang and Madman had become the backing of the Demon Palace. This also reflected a principle: good people will be rewarded. If it wasn't for them helping Qin Feiyang and the others back then, how could they have their current status in the Sky Cloud realm? Even the dragons and Qilins had to be polite when they saw them now. Boom. Madman wanted to say something, but a terrifying aura suddenly appeared outside. Qin Feiyang and Madman quickly looked at the scene in front of them. The source of the aura came from the door of the Divine Kingdom. What's wrong? Elder Huo was surprised. Someone from the Divine Kingdom came. Let's talk later. Qin Feiyang replied and turned off the sound transmission godstone. This aura was a bit familiar. It seemed to be the purple gold divine dragon that fought against the Blood Demon King. As the aura became more obvious and stronger, Qin Feiyang was finally sure that it was this person. At the same time, Madman also stared at the door of the Divine Kingdom. Although he hadn't officially seen this person with his own eyes, he could recognize this aura after he recovered his memories. Shua. A few seconds later, a middle-aged man walked out of the door of the Divine Kingdom. He wore a purple gold robe, and his eyes were filled with anger and killing intent. As soon as he appeared, he shouted, "Madman Mo, get over here right now." His voice was like a bell that resounded in all directions. Qin Feiyang looked at Madman in shock and said, "He's here specifically for you." "Great, I also want to meet him. Let's see how much he's improved after all these years." Madman chuckled. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. With a wave of his hand, Madman immediately appeared outside. He looked up at the middle-aged man and laughed. "Why are you looking for me?" The middle-aged man looked down at Madman. "He's actually hiding in the core area?" Madman stepped out and landed in front of the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man looked at Madman and muttered, "Apart from your looks, you really look like him." "Look like who?" Madman smiled playfully. "Blood Demon King." The middle-aged man said word by word in a deep voice. "Who are you to Blood Demon King?" Madman suddenly realized and said jokingly, "Take a guess." This person must have learned of his methods from the mouth of the God Race woman, so he came to the Sky Cloud realm to question him. From this, it could be seen. This person also hated his previous life's Blood Demon King to the extreme. "Not interested." The middle-aged man shook his head. His eyes were aggressive. "On the contrary, I'm very interested in you. Make your move." The geniuses of your Divine Kingdom have been challenging people of our Sky Cloud realm for half a year, not even letting off the older generation. Now I'm going to challenge you, old bastard. Madman snickered. "Courting death." The middle-aged man's eyes turned cold. "Don't worry, I won't say you broke the agreement." Madman's face was full of provocation. "Good." The middle-aged man waved his hand. Accompanied by the emergence of the law of space and time, a river of stars with the power to destroy the world poured down from the sky. "Don't hold back. Take out your full strength. You can even take out your sovereign weapon." Madman laughed. The law of space and time, the law of destruction, the law of thunder, and the law of slaughter, the four ultimate mysteries were all activated in an instant. The aura of destruction suddenly roared in the sky above the core area. "Sure enough, you have mastered the four ultimate mysteries." The middle-aged man was shocked. When he heard the words of the God Race woman, he still didn't believe it. For ultimate mysteries, even in the Divine Kingdom, would make one a peerless monster. How could such a small place like the Sky Cloud realm give birth to such a monster? But he didn't expect it to be true. Boom. Without hesitation, the law of death and the law of slaughter surged out. Two ultimate mysteries appeared in an instant. 3 ultimate mysteries? This is your growth over the years. Even those geniuses of the God Race are about to surpass you. What face do you have to call yourself an older generation figure of the Divine Kingdom? Moreover, you are a purple gold divine dragon. Aren't you shaming the purple gold divine dragon clan? The madman laughed loudly, and the 4 ultimate mysteries attacked. When the man of the Divine Kingdom heard this, his face instantly turned gloomy to the extreme. The 3 ultimate mysteries shattered the sky and attacked madly. Boom. In an instant, the 7 ultimate mysteries met. A wave of apocalyptic energy instantly surged in the core region. Facing absolute suppression, the 3 ultimate mysteries of the man of the divine kingdom shattered on the spot, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Back then, the Blood Demon King actually died in the hands of trash like you. I really feel sorry for him. The madman laughed wildly, his face full of contempt. Who are you to the Blood Demon King? The man of the divine kingdom roared. Accompanied by a loud clang, a purple-gold ancient palace appeared. It instantly grew to several hundred feet, like a mountain, emitting a monstrous divine aura. Looking at this sovereign weapon, the murderous intent in the madman's eyes intensified. Back then, it was this sovereign weapon that had heavily damaged the Blood Demon Tower. Roar! Accompanied by a beast-like roar, the madman's body surged with killing intent. In an instant he turned into a giant. You! The man of the divine kingdom stared at the madman, his eyes trembling violently. After transforming, the madman's aura was even more similar to the Blood Demon King's. Could he be a descendant of the Blood Demon race? Impossible. The Blood Demon race was almost wiped out in the Nether King's hell. Moreover, as far as he knew, the Blood Demon King didn't have any descendants. Shatter for me. The madman laughed, and the mark of all evil appeared between his eyebrows. The giant hand covered the sky and grabbed at the ancient palace. As a sovereign weapon, the ancient palace felt a great sense of danger. Was this an illusion? Even the Blood Demon race couldn't pose a threat to a sovereign weapon. But soon it knew what regret was. The madman's giant hand fell and grabbed it. The power of the source of all evil surged out. The first to be heavily injured was the artifact spirit, and it screamed on the spot. The source of all evil's power was all-pervasive as it crazily strangled the artifact spirit. What kind of power is this? The artifact spirit controlled its body and frantically struggled. However, no matter how hard it tried, it couldn't escape from the madman's palm. Even though it's a pity to destroy a sovereign weapon, you deserve to die. The madman smiled sinisterly, and his strength erupted without holding back. The ancient palace began to shatter. No, the artifact spirit roared. An aura of death shrouded over. How is this possible? This power is actually so similar to the power of the god race's mark? The middle-aged man was shocked. He activated his 3 ultimate profound and charged at the madman, trying to save the ancient palace. However, the madman didn't care about this at all. He raised his other arm and punched out. The source of all evil's power surged. With a loud bang, 2 of the 3 ultimate profound meanings were the ultimate profound meanings of the strongest laws. However, they couldn't withstand the power of the madman's punch at all, and shattered on the spot. It was simply unstoppable. Chapter 39-27. It's really the same as the god race's mark. The middle-aged man's eyes trembled. What kind of power was this? How could it be so powerful? No, at the same time. Accompanied by a shrill scream, the ancient palace in the madman's hand was completely shattered, and the artifact spirit was also annihilated. A sovereign-level divine weapon was destroyed just like that. This scene was simply too shocking. Qin Feiyang, who was standing in the Black Tortoise realm, couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Was this the madman's current strength? There was no suspense. This guy was definitely the strongest person in the Sky Cloud realm. Just by relying on means alone, without the sovereign-level divine weapon, even Longqin couldn't be the madman's opponent. If the 2 of you fought, who would be stronger? At this time, a voice sounded from the side. Qin Feiyang and Pei Dason were taken aback. They turned their heads and saw Fire Dance standing beside them. When did you come? I've been here for a while, but you were too engrossed in the battle and didn't notice me. Fire Dance shook her head and smiled. However, this battle was indeed exciting. To be honest, Pei Dason pondered for a moment, looked at Fire Dance and said seriously, I think the young master is still better. After all, the young master has 3,000 incarnations and the Eye of Heaven. The madman also has a blood eye. Fire Dance frowned. So what if it's a blood eye? It's useless against 3,000 incarnations. Pei Dason smiled proudly. That's true. Fire Dance nodded. Although the blood eye had the ability to petrify, facing Qin Feiyang's cultivation, it still needed a process. In other words, it couldn't be petrified instantly. As long as it couldn't be petrified instantly, Qin Feiyang could have 3,000 incarnations. The root of all evil's power was indeed powerful, able to suppress ultimate profound. However, what if it was 3,000 ultimate profound, or even 6,000 ultimate profound, or even 9,000 ultimate profound? Any kind of power had a limit. You could crush one ultimate profound, but it didn't mean that you could crush 10, 100, or even 1,000 ultimate profound. Anyway, no matter what, they are all monsters. Pei Dason smiled bitterly. The white-eyed wolf had deprived him of his cultivation base, his fighting soul, and his laws. The mad scientist controlled the source of all evil, and possessed power that surpassed the ultimate profound. Moreover, he also had a terrifying fighting soul, the Blood Eye. Qin Feiyang, 3,000 incarnations, the Eye of Heaven, and the laws of life. There was also Long Chun, who possessed a domain of divinity and an intermediate dominator divine armament. Furthermore, his strength was currently unfathomable. Of these four, any one of them was in existence that made people tremble in fear. I agree with that. Fire Dance nodded. It's so stressful to be with these monsters. You guys are too imaginative. I don't know about Long Chun, but between senior brother Feng Zi and the white-eyed wolf, we will never be able to fight, so there is no such thing as who is stronger and who is weaker. Qin Feiyang looked at the two of them speechlessly, then continued to look at the battlefield outside. The sovereign weapon, Gu Palace, was enough to declare the destruction of both its soul and body. With the destruction of Gu Palace, the hatred on the mad scientist's shoulders seemed to have lessened by a lot. The obsession left behind in his previous life was this person in front of him, and this sovereign weapon. As long as he could kill this person and destroy this sovereign weapon, he could finally give an explanation to his clansmen who died in the battle back then. At the same time, it was also an explanation to his previous life, the Blood Demon King. Terrifying. It's really too terrifying. The man from the Divine Kingdom turned pale. He originally thought that the Blood Demon clan had been wiped out back then, but he didn't expect that such a terrifying young man still existed in this world. He was many times stronger than the Blood Demon King back then. Whoosh. Suddenly, he turned around abruptly and rushed toward the door of the Divine Kingdom without looking back. Ji and Hai, are you trying to escape? The mad scientist asked. What? The man from the Divine Kingdom's eyes trembled. He turned his head and stared at the mad scientist in shock. How do you know my name? Because I have fused with the Blood Demon King's memories and inheritance. I know everything about you like the back of my hand. Pay the price for the slaughter you committed back then. Madman used the specter ghost steps. Like a ghost, he instantly appeared in front of Ji Yanhai and punched out. Ji Yanhai's eyes trembled. Could it be that this person's aura was so familiar? It turned out that he had fused with the Blood Demon King's memories and inheritance. In other words, this person was now the incarnation of the Blood Demon King. Blood Demon King. When enemies meet, their eyes turn red. Roar. Accompanied by a deafening dragon roar, Ji Yanhai transformed into his original body. A huge dragon appeared in the sky. The scene that happened in the underworld was replayed once again. A huge giant against a huge dragon. The two behemoths collided crazily. For the mad scientist who had recovered the memories of his previous life, this scene was too familiar. He would never forget it. Similarly, it also made him recall the scene of countless creatures dying in despair in the underworld. Your sins are monstrous. Even if you die today, it will be difficult to atone for your sins. The mad scientist roared. The power of the source of all evil destroyed everything. Ridiculous. The strong preys on the weak. Don't you understand this logic? Ji Yanhai also let out a furious roar. No matter if it was an ultimate profound or a supreme profound, no matter if it was the first profound or the fifth profound, all of them were activated at once. They emitted a destructive aura as they charged towards Madman. Rumble. A deafening explosion occurred in the core region. The terrifying battle fluctuations crazily rushed towards the inner region, the middle region, and the border region. Wherever it went, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. Finally, This fluctuation rushed out of the demon land and spread across the sky of the eastern and northern continents. It was like the might of the heavens, shocking countless creatures. What's going on? What a powerful fluctuation. It seems to be from the land of buried gods. That's right. It's from the land of buried gods. Wait. This seems to be the mad scientist's aura. The other aura. Feels like, right, the purple gold divine dragon. The mad scientist is fighting with the divine kingdom's purple gold divine dragon? Such a terrifying fluctuation. How fierce is this battle? Everyone looked at the land of buried gods from afar. There was a trace of excitement in their eyes, but there was also a trace of worry. The mad scientist's strength was obvious to all. To be able to fight with the mad scientist like this, the other party was definitely not an ordinary person. However, the unluckiest ones were the Feng people. They had just moved to the land of buried gods, and had yet to set up camp in the border region when the battle in the core region broke out. They had already sensed it the moment the mad scientist and Ji Yunhai fought. They originally thought that the battle fluctuations would not affect the border region. After all, the land of buried gods was very big. But they never expected that such a terrifying fluctuation would erupt in the end. The older generation of the Feng people were still fine. After all, they were so far away and could barely withstand the battle fluctuations. But the young people of the Feng people were almost instantly injured. They had no choice. The older generation of the Feng people once again led their people and ran outside as if they were fleeing for their lives. They were really like a rat crossing the street. In a sorry state and pitiful state. The core region. The wind whistled and waves of air surged. At the center of the battlefield, the mad scientist was like a demon king, his aura swallowing heaven and earth. His fist shattered all the profound laws and directly smashed towards Ji Yunhai's head. This is the difference between you and me. Go repent in hell. The mad scientist smiled coldly, seeing that mountain-like giant about to land on Ji Yunhai's head. Ji Yunhai suddenly smiled sinisterly. The one who is going to hell is not me, it's you. Boom. As his voice fell, a destructive aura rushed out from Ji Yunhai's dragon body. Self-destruction. You left your divine soul in the divine kingdom. The mad scientist raised his eyebrows. Otherwise, how would this person dare to self-destruct? Go to hell. Ji Yunhai's face revealed an extremely terrifying malevolence. His physical body instantly exploded in the void, and a wave of world-destroying power surged out like a tide, covering the sky and covering the earth as it surged out in all directions. The mark of all evil between the mad scientist's eyebrows erupted with dazzling blood light. It seemed like he was preparing to face this fluctuation head-on. But at this moment, Qin Feiyang and Fire Dance appeared. Fire Dance waved her hand, and 11 sovereign divine weapons appeared. They immediately condensed into a huge barrier that enveloped the mad scientist. The mad scientist was stunned. He looked at Qin Feiyang and Fire Dance with displeasure and said, "Aren't you two meddling in other people's business? Good intentions don't get rewarded?" Fire Dance raised her eyebrows in dissatisfaction. "I know you're very strong now, but there's no need to take such a risk." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "You finally admit that I'm stronger than you now?" The mad scientist laughed proudly. "Shameless." Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. He looked up at the Divine Kingdom's gate with a regretful expression. It was a pity that Ji Yunhai left his divine soul in the Divine Kingdom. Otherwise, the ending would be perfect. No need to feel regretful. If I can kill him once, I can kill him a second time in the future. Let's talk about it later. His sovereign divine weapon has been destroyed. I've collected some interest. The mad scientist laughed. Qin Feiyang nodded and asked, "You said that his name is Ji Yunhai?" "Yes. That's the surname of the purple gold divine dragon." The mad scientist nodded. Qin Feiyang suddenly realized and asked suspiciously, "Then is the surname Jiang the surname of the god race?" "How would I know? The last time, the god race didn't appear at all." However, the god race really can't be underestimated. Even the purple gold divine dragon race wouldn't be their match without 3,000 incarnations. The mad scientist said solemnly, "I think so too." Qin Feiyang nodded. The power of the god race's mark was too terrifying. It was exactly the same as the mad scientist's mark of all evil. Fire Dance thought for a moment, and looked at the mad scientist suspiciously. Then, in the Divine Kingdom, other than the God race and the purple gold Divine Dragon race, are there any other races? There must be. There are also humans in the Divine Kingdom. I've already inquired about the first 10 prodigies that appeared. Other than the so-called Ryuko, the other 9 should be human prodigies of the Divine Kingdom. The mad scientist said. Hearing this, Fire Dance pondered for a moment and smiled. It seems that the status of humans in the Divine Kingdom is inferior to the purple gold Divine Dragon race. Because at that time, the 9 human prodigies were very respectful to Ryuko. You're still worried about their situation? Back then, it was these damned people who crazily invaded our sky cloud realm with the purple gold Divine Dragon race. The mad scientist snorted coldly. I'm not worried about their situation. I'm just a little curious about the situation of the Divine Kingdom. Fire Dance shook her head and smiled. Chapter 39:28. The speaker didn't mean it, but the listener did. When Qin Feiyang and Madman heard Fire Dance's words, they immediately looked up at the gate of the Divine Kingdom, their eyes flickering. Don't let your imagination run wild. After being together for so long, Fire Dance had already figured out the characters of Qin Feiyang and Madman. Looking at the eyes of the two, she knew that these two guys must be thinking about the Divine Kingdom. Don't say it. I really want to go to the Divine Kingdom to take a look. Qin Feiyang chuckled. As expected of brothers, we all think of the same thing. Madman smiled slyly. As expected. Fire Dance rolled her eyes. I had this idea before, but at that time, you and White-Eyed Wolf hadn't come out of seclusion, so I wasn't confident. But now, I think we can give it a try. Qin Feiyang looked at Madman and said. When Fire Dance heard this, she hurriedly said, Hey, don't take it seriously. But the two turned a deaf ear, and discussed enthusiastically. Just us and Brother Wolf shouldn't be enough. How about we call Longchen and Longqin? Madman smiled slyly. Good idea. Dragging the siblings into the water is tantamount to tying up the ice dragon. Qin Feiyang nodded. That's right. If anything happens to the siblings in the Divine Kingdom, I don't believe that ice dragon will sit back and do nothing. It's best to call that mysterious young man as well. That guy's strength is unfathomable. He will definitely be of great help. Makes sense. But where can we find this young man now? What's so difficult about this? With our current status in the Sky Cloud realm, we just need to casually give an order, and the people of the 4 continents will help us find him. Listening to the conversation between the two, Fire Dance couldn't help but rub her forehead. Why was it so troublesome? Wasn't he comfortable staying in the Sky Cloud realm to defend? Why did he have to go to the Divine Kingdom to take this risk? Besides, would the Lord of the Divine Kingdom let you enter the Divine Kingdom? Don't joke around. A person like the King of the Divine Kingdom would only allow himself to invade other continents, but would never allow anyone to invade his territory. Madman suddenly looked up at Fire Dance and asked, Why are you still here? Fire Dance was stunned. What did he mean by that? She had been standing by the side the whole time. Didn't she see? He dared to treat her as heir? What I mean is that the phone people are in the land of buried gods. Aren't you going to see them? The madman smirked. My love has not overflowed to the point of sympathizing with those who once hurt me. Fire Dance coldly snorted. She also knew about the phone people's current situation. When Qin Feiyang and the mad scientist sent a message to Elder Hua, she was watching from the tea garden. Ah. Madman looked at Fire Dance in surprise. Now this woman's performance really made people look at her in a new light. Anyway, for now, I have to help keep an eye on you. Don't do anything stupid, Fire Dance said expressionlessly. What do you know? We can't beat the Divine Kingdom if we keep passively defending like this. Because if you drive away a group of people, they will soon send another group. So we have to find a way to take the initiative to attack. Madman rolled his eyes at her. But we can't just charge into the Divine Kingdom. Fire Dance angrily glared at Madman, then thought for a moment and said, If you want to go, fine, but let me tell you, don't drag my husband into it. You haven't even married yet, and you're already talking about my husband. Woman, I think it's better to be reserved. Madman looked at Fire Dance playfully, causing her face to turn red. Don't worry. If we want to go, we will definitely plan it well. Besides, White-Eyed Wolf is still on Sky Cloud Island, and we don't know when he will come back. Qin Feiyang smiled. After all this time, you still want to drag him into it? Fire Dance frowned. Nonsense. We are brothers, we will share blessings and misfortunes. Let's talk about it later. When Brother Wolf knows about this, will he still need us to instigate him? At that time, I'm afraid he will run faster than us. Madman said sneakily. Sigh. I can only say that he is careless in making friends. Fire Dance sighed helplessly. You are just jealous of the friendship between us brothers. Madman laughed loudly. I'm jealous, so what? Anyway, he has a family now. Shouldn't you think about me, his family? Fire Dance immediately pouted in a fit of pique. Don't worry about this. I will never let you be a widow. Madman bared his teeth. Damn, Madman. What are you talking about? Fire Dance gnashed her teeth in anger. Still embarrassed? Brother Wolf already said that you guys have already, that. Madman pursed his lips. What? Fire Dance was suspicious. We are all on the same side, what is there to hide? It's nothing more than that between men and women. Madman despised. Fire Dance's cheeks turned red again, and she said angrily. How can there be such a thing? He is talking nonsense. Ha! Madman and Qin Feiyang looked at Fire Dance in astonishment. Really? We are still in a very pure relationship. Fire Dance lowered her head, blushed and said embarrassedly. It can't be. That damn wolf cub lied to us. Qin Feiyang and Madman frowned. Fire Dance asked suspiciously, when did he say that to you? Madman said, it was when he gave you the inheritance of the Law of Fire in the Sky Bell Divine Treasury. No wonder you said so many strange things at that time, about having a child early, about growing old together, so. Fire Dance was furious when she heard that. This bastard actually dared to talk nonsense outside. Wasn't this ruining her reputation? Qin Feiyang and Madman were still fine because they were on the same side, but if outsiders knew about it, how would they talk about her? Qin Feiyang looked at the angry Fire Dance and said angrily, this bastard is really too much. Not only did he ruin your reputation, but he also deceived us. Senior brother, let's go to Sky Cloud Island to settle the score with him now. Okay. Madman nodded. Don't. Seeing this, Fire Dance hurriedly stopped the two and said with concern. Maybe he is in seclusion now. It's better not to disturb him. Aren't you angry? We will help you teach him a lesson. Madman frowned. I'm not angry. Besides, he is doing it for my own good. After all, if he didn't say that, you wouldn't have given me the inheritance of the Law of Fire. As for deceiving you, I apologize to you on his behalf. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. Fire Dance said apologetically. Haha. Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other and couldn't help laughing. What? Fire Dance looked at the two suspiciously. Do you really think we are going to settle the score with him? I'm just teasing you. I just want to see your reaction. But it seems that you really care about him. I'm glad, the two said with a smile. Fire Dance was stunned for a moment and suddenly burned with anger. She gritted her teeth and shouted, You are two bastards. This is too much. I'm leaving. Don't stop me. After saying that, she put away the sovereign divine weapon and left in a fit of anger. Bye, I won't send you off. Madman waved his hand lazily and grinned. Fire Dance's expression froze. What kind of people were these? It was fine if they didn't stop her, but they actually said goodbye? Bastards, really bastards. She walked out of the inner area with a stomach full of anger. She can't be really angry, right? Madman was stunned. He thought that she was just angry, but he didn't expect it to be true. If the white-eyed wolf knew that they drove his wife away, wouldn't he kill them? She is not so careful. She just wants to give herself a way out. She wants to see the people of phone people. You really don't care? Impossible. Qin Feiyang shook his head. So that's how it is. You scared me. Madman patted his chest and turned to look at Qin Feiyang. He chuckled and said, "You know how to read people's minds. Do you still need to figure it out? Just think about it from another perspective. With Fire Dance's personality, even if the Feng people don't treat her well, she won't be at ease. Besides, now that the culprits Feng Ho and Bing Changtian have died, and Bing Running is suppressed in the Soul-Sealing Valley, she might have already vented her anger. She just doesn't want to bow down to the Feng people because of her face." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Okay. You continue to comprehend the law of life and death. I'll go to the dragon nest and discuss with Long Chun." With that said, Madman opened a spatial passageway and ran in without looking back. "You are really impatient." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He raised his head and looked at the door of the Divine Kingdom. If he joined the Long Chun siblings and the mysterious youth, he might really be able to give it a try. Moreover, the Divine King of Primal Chaos gave him the insight. The most important sentence was, "Put yourself in death and fight to live." The meaning of this sentence had always confused him. Therefore, he also wanted to go out and see something different. Perhaps it would give him some inspiration. Back at the Black Tortoise world, Qin Feiyang asked Pei Dason to continue to keep an eye on the outside while he took out the Divine Sound Transmission Stone and sent a message to Elder Hua, the Vice Leader He Zhongtian, and the Sky Palace Master, asking them to help find the whereabouts of the mysterious youth. Moreover, he also sent a message to the Sea Lion Island and asked it to help find him. As for the Sea Lion Emperor and the others, there was no need to bother them with such a small matter. After all, they had merged with the law of life and were all cultivating in seclusion. After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyang activated the Divine Sound Transmission Stone again. Buzz. Soon, a woman in white appeared. "Qin Dage, you are finally willing to send me a message. I thought you had forgotten me." This woman was Yueqing. After more than 100 years, this woman was now more mature and charming. Now in the Sky Cloud realm, Yuqing was absolutely considered a goddess-level figure. It was not that she was very beautiful, but because of her identity and status. The Tianyue building was now spread throughout the entire Sky Cloud realm, and had become the fifth force outside of the Demon Slayer Palace, the Divine Palace, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, and the Sky Palace. However, she was quite low-key. Moreover, she had always been respectful to the Demon Slayer Palace, the Divine Palace, the Sky Palace, and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Because this was the way of business. Mutual respect, mutual reliance, and honesty. Only then could one become bigger and stronger. "Haven't I been busy all this time?" Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. The Tianyue building could be said to have risen in the Sky Cloud realm under his watch. And it was also due to his contribution, so he had a special feeling for the Tianyue building. Chapter 39-29. I know. I'm busy fighting with the Divine Kingdom. I have to thank you heroes who are fighting on the front line. If it weren't for your efforts, how could we have such a peaceful life now? I just want to say that we have been friends for many years. If you have time, you should visit each other more often. Otherwise, as time passes, our relationship will slowly fade. Yueqing smiled slightly. To be honest, although the Tianyue building that she managed, including the Mingyu that Qin Feiyang gave to her, was now all over the Tianyan realm, she knew that no matter how well she did, no matter how much power and wealth she had, she would never be able to compare with people like Qin Feiyang. To put it bluntly, it was like the difference between the mortal world and the cultivation world. In the mortal world, no matter how high your status is or how much power you have, you can't compare with a cultivator in the cultivation world. Not to mention, people like Qin Feiyang were still standing at the top of the cultivation world. She was worried. As Qin Feiyang's strength became stronger and stronger, he might slowly look down on her, a mortal woman, in the future. Don't think so much. Friends are for life. When I'm free in the future, I will often visit your Tianyue building. At that time, if I renege on my debt, you as a rich man, don't trouble me. Qin Feiyang laughed. You're making fun of me. Rich man. Yueqing shook her head and pouted. The wealth that she had now could indeed be said to be comparable to a country. But she didn't have the confidence to compare with Qin Feiyang. After all, everyone knew that Qin Feiyang possessed an independent world. An independent world. That sort of wealth was not something that could be compared to anything else. Okay, let's get down to business. There's something I want to ask you for help with, Qin Feiyang said. What's the matter? Yue Qing was suspicious. She really couldn't think of anything that could help Qin Feiyang. After all, this man was now a figure who could call the wind and summon the rain in the Tianyan realm. Help me find a person. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the phantom of the mysterious youth appeared. It's him? Yue Qing was stunned. You've seen him before? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. He's in our Tianyue building right now. Moreover, he has been staying in our Tianyue building for several months. He is either sleeping or drinking all day long. Many years ago, when you fought against the first prince of the dragons on White Crane Island, I was there as well. At that time, I saw this person, and your relationship seemed to be quite good, so when I saw him, I treated him very carefully. Yue Qing explained. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. It was indeed this person's character. He asked, which Tianyue building? The Heavenly Delight Pavilion in Ocean of Cloud City. He's drinking in the hall downstairs. Do you want to come over now? It just so happens that I'm here as well, Yue Qing asked, her eyes full of expectation. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then I'll make preparations first. Since an honored guest has come to my Tianyue building, I'll definitely treat him well. Yue Qing chuckled. Do as you wish. Qin Feiyang shook his head and couldn't help but laugh, and then he turned off the transmission stone. The transmission stone had just entered into closed-door cultivation when it buzzed once more. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He activated the transmission stone, and Elder Hu's image appeared and laughed hoarsely. I found him. He's in Ocean of Cloud City's Tianyue building. So fast. Qin Feiyang was astounded. It hadn't been long since he gave the order, and there was actually news. His efficiency was extraordinary. Elder Hu chuckled. Qin Feiyang, whose name shakes the entire Skycloud continent. How could I dare to neglect Lord Qin's orders? You're making fun of me as well. Qin Feiyang was speechless. Elder Hu shook his head and smiled. All right. I won't tease you anymore. Why are you looking for him? It's a private matter. Then that's all for now. I won't disturb your cultivation. After saying that, Qin Feiyang turned off the divine sound transmission stone. With Elder Hu's character, he definitely couldn't let him know about their plan. Otherwise, he would definitely advise them endlessly like Huo Wu. Moreover, he didn't want Elder Hu to worry about him because of this. After putting away the transmission stone, Qin Feiyang appeared outside with Pei Dason and instructed, be sure to keep an eye on him. Once you see him, immediately send me a message. Okay. Pei Dason nodded. When Qin Feiyang left, he was still a little worried, so he handed the horsetail whisk to Pei Dason. After all, the people of the Divine Kingdom could descend here at any time. Giving Pei Dason a ruler weapon wasn't enough to kill the enemy, but it wasn't a problem to escape with him. Ocean of Cloud City. Although the 4 youths from the god race had come here and caused a ruckus and almost massacred the city, half a year had passed, and the impact wasn't great anymore. People's lives were still the same, but compared to before, the number of people walking on the streets had obviously decreased. As the saying goes, pressure is motivation. Facing a colossus like the Divine Kingdom, those who were a little more sensible would definitely not run out every day like before. Especially the disciples of the Demon Palace. Without special circumstances, they wouldn't leave the Demon Palace and cultivate wholeheartedly. However, no matter how serious the situation was, as a layman, it was inevitable that they would have to socialize. So the various restaurants were still quite lively. Especially a colossus like the Tianyue restaurant. It would welcome a large number of guests every day. At this moment, in the magnificent hall, there were dozens of tables of guests sitting. The current scale of the Tianyue restaurant in Ocean of Cloud City wasn't small. It was almost a dozen times larger than before. Because this place could be considered the headquarters of the Tianyue restaurant. Yue Qing had made his fortune here. As the first place to make his fortune, it naturally had to be well decorated. And now, the topic that everyone was discussing the most was undoubtedly the war between the Divine Kingdom and the Sky Cloud realm. Long Chen, Yin Xiang, Li Feng, and Madman naturally became the focus of discussion. Because these few times, they were the ones who drove away the groups of people from the Divine Kingdom. Especially before. Madman's battle with Ji Yunhai in the core area had shocked the entire Eastern continent. So, he naturally became the focus of attention. In a corner of the hall, there was a table for two people. A young man in tattered clothes was drinking wine lazily while looking through the window at the pedestrians on the street outside with lifeless eyes. He didn't say a word throughout the entire process. The topics of discussion at the other tables didn't arouse his interest at all. It was like he was in an independent space and didn't fit in at all. However, when the other guests occasionally glanced at the young man, there was a trace of reverence in their eyes. Suddenly, on the top floor, the door opened. A woman walked out. She was graceful and charming. It was Yueqing. Miss Yueqing, so you're also in Cloud Sea City. I thought you were in another branch. It's really rare to see a benefactor like you. When Yueqing arrived at the hall, familiar people greeted her one after another. How am I a benefactor? Everyone here is the benefactor of Tianyue Building. Because without everyone's support, Tianyue Building wouldn't be where it is today. Everyone eat and drink well. Today's expenses are free of charge. Yueqing smiled. She was very happy. Free of charge? Really? Miss Yueqing, what kind of good thing did you encounter? You're so happy. Everyone was stunned. Later, there will be a true benefactor coming to Tianyue Building. Yueqing smiled. What benefactor? Everyone was curious. You'll know later. Yueqing smiled mysteriously. She walked to the young man and whispered, Young master, can you please go to the private room upstairs? Reason. The young man turned his head and looked at Yueqing lazily. Yueqing glanced at the other guests and said telepathically, Qin Dage will come to you later. I guess he has something to do. There are too many people in the hall, so it's better to. Is he the benefactor you mentioned? The young man was stunned. Yes. Yueqing nodded and said to herself, Tianyue Building is where it is today entirely because of Qin Dage. Therefore, he is not only my benefactor, but also the benefactor of the entire Tianyue Building. Not bad. You've achieved glory, but you still don't forget other people's kindness. The young man nodded and smiled with appreciation. He waved his hand and said, There's no need to go upstairs. Just stay here. I'm too lazy to move. Yueqing's mouth twitched. Can't even be bothered to walk a few steps? There was actually such a lazy person. She had really learned something new. All right, as long as you're happy. Seeing that the young man ignored her, Yueqing turned around and walked to the counter. She looked at the waiter standing behind the counter and said, Prepare a pot of the best wine. Okay. The staff nodded. Wait. All of a sudden, Yueqing stopped the waiter again. After pondering for a while, she shook her head and said, I don't want wine because he doesn't like to drink. How about this? Bring me my precious tea leaves. Your precious tea leaves? The waiter was stunned and asked, Are you sure? Of course I'm sure. Go ahead. Yueqing waved her hand. The waiter left with a look of disbelief. He had worked in Tianyue Building for decades, so he knew the owner of the building very well. Her precious tea leaves were the king of teas, and were extremely rare. Usually, she wouldn't take them out even when she was entertaining the influential people of Cloud Sea City. Even the people of the City Lord's mansion didn't have the chance to drink it. But now, not only did she come downstairs personally, she even took out the best tea leaves. Who exactly was the person who was going to come later? He was being treated so well. Very soon, the waiter walked over with an exquisite teapot. He looked so careful as if he was afraid that he would accidentally drop the teapot. He put down the teapot gently, and was about to get the tea set. No need. I'll do it personally. Yueqing stopped the waiter and walked to the young man with the teapot. She said with a smile, Can I sit? Her attitude was rather polite. Up to you. The young man replied indifferently. Thank you. Yueqing smiled and sat opposite the young man. She took out a set of top-grade tea set and began to brew tea. Her movements were extremely gentle and elegant. She had been running the tea house all these years and had a good understanding of tea. What kind of tea needed what kind of water, and the temperature of the water, the length of time it took to brew the tea, and so on. It could be said that she was now an accomplished tea master. Naturally, she didn't lack good tea sets. Who exactly is coming? Not only did she come downstairs personally, but she also brewed tea to receive him personally. This is not ordinary treatment. I'm afraid that even those big shots from the Demon Hall and the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance are nothing more than this. Everyone looked at the happy Yueqing with suspicion in their eyes. Chapter 39:30. Tianyue restaurant slowly quieted down. The rich tea fragrance quickly covered the wine fragrance in the hall. It was obvious that these were not ordinary tea leaves. Everyone drank as they silently stared at the door, waiting for the so-called nobleman. Time passed quietly. Suddenly, a figure appeared out of thin air outside the door. This person was wearing a fitting white robe. He was tall and slender, and had an extraordinary temperament. There was a faint smile on his face, which made people feel close to him. At this moment, not only the guests in the hall, but even the pedestrians on the street immediately stopped and looked at the white-robed young man. At first, there was a trace of surprise in everyone's eyes. Were their eyes playing tricks on them? Why would he appear in Cloudsea City? After all, with this person's current status, a casual word from him could shake the Sky Cloud realm. If there was anything, he only needed to give the order. There was no need for him to do it personally. However, when they rubbed their eyes hard and looked again, they found that it was indeed the man they knew, Qin Feiyang. So he came to Tianyue restaurant. Could Yueqing be so happy? Everyone came to a realization. Everyone knew that Tianyue restaurant relied on the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance and the Demon Palace to develop. All of this was naturally related to Qin Feiyang. Later, Tianyue restaurant gradually entered the Western continent, Northern continent, and Southern continent. It also received the care of the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance, the Demon Palace, and the Sky Palace. This was also related to Qin Feiyang. Although Qin Feiyang rarely appeared in Tianyue restaurant, and although the owners of Tianyue restaurant were Yueqing and Yi Miao, everyone knew that the man behind Tianyue restaurant was actually Qin Feiyang. There were also some rumors in the secular world. Some said that the real owner behind Tianyue restaurant? It was actually Qin Feiyang. Some said that Yueqing and Yi Miao were Qin Feiyang's relatives. Some even said that the two women were Qin Feiyang's confidants. In short, there were different opinions. However, what could be confirmed? The relationship between Qin Feiyang and Yueqing was definitely not ordinary. Otherwise, why would he take such good care of Tianyue restaurant? Qin Dage. Yueqing also hurriedly got up to greet him. The smile on her face? It was as brilliant as a blooming flower. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. He entered Tianyue building. The dozens of tables inside? They immediately stood up, their faces filled with reverence. Everyone, don't be nervous. I just came to see an old friend. Qin Feiyang smiled amiably. He swept his gaze across the hall before making his way toward the young man. Everyone smiled bitterly. How could he not be nervous? Why don't you take a look at your current status in the Sky Cloud realm? However, speaking of which, just how strong was this person now? Ever since he returned from the Heavenly Bell Divine Treasure, he had never seen this person make a move. Compared to the current Golden-Winged Wolf King, a madman? Longqin, Li Feng, Yin Xiang and the others? Who was stronger? Yueqing followed him? She smiled and said, Qin Dage, the tea is ready. Try it and see how it tastes. If you don't like it, I'll change it. Qin Feiyang sat opposite the young man. He picked up the teacup that had been filled with tea. He put it on the tip of his nose and smelled it. The tea assailed his nose and made his mouth salivate. Immediately, he tasted it again. The taste of the tea was very smooth, without any bitterness. It also had a hint of sweetness and fragrance. Not bad. It can compete with the Yulu Longjing and the Tianxian Lu. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. It's good that you like it. Yueqing stood aside like a well-behaved little sister. Don't just stand there. Sit down and talk. Qin Feiyang smiled. Okay. Yueqing nodded and sat next to Qin Feiyang. The young man opposite, holding a wine glass, looked at Qin Feiyang and Yueqing with great interest. A talented man and a beautiful woman, quite a match. What are you looking at? Qin Feiyang noticed the strange look in the young man's eyes and couldn't help but ask suspiciously. Nothing. The young man chuckled and asked, What's the matter? Qin Feiyang looked at the other guests in the hall and said, Are you interested in going to the Divine Kingdom? Ah. The young man looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Going to the Divine Kingdom? What do you think the Divine Kingdom is? Back garden? You said it so easily. Don't tell me you don't have the courage. Qin Feiyang laughed secretly. Don't provoke me. I don't buy it. There was a trace of contempt in the young man's eyes. Did he think he was an idiot? He obviously wanted to drag him into the water. Okay. I won't force you. Think about it yourself. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The young man pondered for a moment and asked suspiciously, Why do you suddenly have this idea? It's simple. I don't want to be on the defensive all the time. Qin Feiyang said secretly. However, with your current strength, even if you successfully enter the Divine Kingdom, you won't be able to make any waves. The young man transmitted. Listening to what you said, you seem to know the true strength of the Divine Kingdom? Qin Feiyang was stunned and looked at the young man curiously. The young man's eyes flashed with a trace of ridicule as he asked, If I say that I know everything, would you believe me? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Ah. The young man was stunned. This reply was indeed a little unexpected. Your identity is too mysterious. Moreover, whether it was in the ancient world, Nether King's Hell, or now in the Sky Cloud realm, you seem to have the ability to know everything. How about, tell me, where did you come from? Who are you? Qin Feiyang was curious. Didn't I tell you last time? I'm the son of the god of creation. The young man chuckled. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and really wanted to slap him, but he shook his head and said, I'm not going to talk nonsense with you. Think about it carefully. Okay, I'll think about it. The young man nodded. A trace of a smile appeared on Qin Feiyang's face. As long as he could think about it, there was hope. He was afraid that he wouldn't even think about it. Where's Miao Miao? Why don't I see her? Qin Feiyang turned to look at Yueqing and asked. You're done talking? Yueqing looked at the two in astonishment. The two had been secretly communicating the whole time. Yueqing also knew about it, so she didn't disturb them. She didn't expect it to be so fast. Yes. It's just a small matter. It won't take much time. Qin Feiyang nodded. Who would believe that? How could a small matter be sneaky? However, Yueqing was a sensible girl. She knew what to ask and what not to ask. She smiled and said, Miao Miao has been busy in the southern continent. You guys have worked hard. I think the foundation of the Tianyue building has been laid. Why don't you hire more people to help? You don't have to do everything by yourself. Qin Feiyang said. Actually, we're quite relaxed now. There are people in charge everywhere. Basically, we don't have to go over. But you also know that not everyone can be trusted. Miao Miao and I are worried that the managers of some places will take advantage of the power of the Tianyue building and bully the customers. So when we're free, we'll disguise ourselves and go to different places secretly. That's the so-called incognito investigation. Yueqing smiled faintly. I see. You're quite thoughtful. In today's world, it's not uncommon for a big shop to bully its customers. We really need to be careful. Qin Feiyang nodded. Actually, this kind of thing has happened in other branches before. However, after Miao Miao and I found out about it, we immediately dealt with it seriously. The people involved were executed on the spot. It was quite a deterrent. Yueqing sighed. Speaking of these things, she was really a little sad. Two of the people involved were the first to follow her. Out of trust, she had sent them to manage other branches. She didn't expect that they would hold the power in their hands and commit crimes in the local area. Human greed was indeed difficult to satisfy. Once you had something good, you would want something better. I'll definitely support you in this matter, Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Yueqing was secretly delighted when she heard this. She asked, Qin Dage, what do you think of the matter we discussed in the past? What is it? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Yueqing said with a smile. It's the divine brew in your hands. If there was divine brew, the business of the Tianhua building would definitely rise to another level. Oh that. Qin Feiyang smiled in realization. Back then, we were afraid of the three major races and didn't want to implicate the Tianhua building. But now that the Dragon King and the other two are dead, we shouldn't be afraid of anything anymore. Yueqing looked at Qin Feiyang expectantly. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. Thank you, Qin Dage. When the time comes, I'll give you all the profits. Yueqing was pleasantly surprised. All of it? Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback and asked suspiciously. Then what are you earning? I'm earning fame. With the divine brew, the reputation of the Tianhua building will definitely be greater than before. The greater the reputation, the better the business, and naturally, the more money we will earn in the future, Yueqing said with a smile. You really know how to do business. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Then he waved his hand and said, forget about the profits. Just take it as my sponsorship. How embarrassing is that? Yueqing said hurriedly. It's nothing. We're friends. Besides, do I lack that little bit of profit? Qin Feiyang smiled. That's true. Yueqing nodded. With Qin Feiyang's strength, he didn't need this little bit of wealth at all. Moreover, these worldly wealth didn't mean much to him anymore. How about this? You help me collect divine arts. Any grade is fine, but you must buy them at a reasonable price. You can't take them by force. Qin Feiyang thought for a while and said, what do you need divine arts for? Yueqing was suspicious. It's not for me, it's for the beings of the Black Tortoise world. Although I've obtained many divine arts from killing enemies in the past, the number of beings of the Black Tortoise world is increasing day by day. They are my people. Of course, I have to help them. Qin Feiyang smiled. So that's how it is. Yueqing was enlightened and said enviously, the beings of the Black Tortoise world are really lucky to have met a good person like Qin Dage. No. You're saying the opposite. I'm lucky to have met them. They are the greatest blessing of my generation. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Something delayed me today. The remaining 2 chapters will be released at 11 o'clock. Chapter 39-31. These words shocked Yueqing. Although she had stayed in the Black Tortoise world for a period of time in the western mainland, she had been confined to the Devil's Land. Therefore, she didn't know much about the Black Tortoise world. Therefore, she thought that it had always been Qin Feiyang taking care of the Black Tortoise world. Because, from an outsider's point of view, the Black Tortoise world was so weak. How could they help Qin Feiyang? Moreover, in these years, other than Qin Feiyang himself, the Madman and the Golden-Winged Wolf King, they hadn't seen any Black Tortoise world creatures come out to fight. But they didn't know. Every time Qin Feiyang opened the slaughter domain, the fresh blood he absorbed was freely contributed by the Black Tortoise world creatures. Although Qin Feiyang had grasped the Karma Law's ultimate and the Life and Death Law's ultimate mysteries, and his Eye of Heaven had evolved and wouldn't easily open the slaughter domain, it had helped Qin Feiyang defeat countless strong enemies in the past. Standing behind him and silently supporting him were the beings of the Black Tortoise realm. Therefore, he had secretly vowed countless times that he wouldn't mistreat these cute creatures in the future. In any case, the more divine arts the better. Qin Feiyang looked at Yueqing and smiled. He didn't explain too much. Okay. Yueqing nodded. Qin Feiyang smiled. Then go to the Black Tortoise world. I'll ask Pei Hongyu to bring you to a person called Zhao Si and ask him to give you all the Black Tortoise divine brew he has. Okay. Yueqing's face was filled with anticipation. How much of this all was there? Qin Feiyang waved his hand and Yueqing disappeared. Then he looked at the young man and asked, have you thought about it? Ah. The young man looked at Qin Feiyang. Don't tell me you haven't thought about it after so long? Qin Feiyang frowned. I haven't thought about it at all. The young man shook his head. Wanting an answer now, he was really impatient. Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. Initially, when he saw the young man lowering his head in silence, he thought that he must have been considering this problem. But in the end, he didn't think in this direction at all. How long do you need to think about it? Qin Feiyang felt powerless. Fortunately, he didn't interact with this person often. Otherwise, his careless attitude would make him anxious to death. Don't worry. Wait until I have a good night's sleep. After my head is clear, I will think about it carefully. After the young man finished speaking, he picked up the wine jar, got up and walked upstairs without looking back, leaving Qin Feiyang sitting alone at the table in a daze. What kind of person did I meet? When he came back to his senses, Qin Feiyang's face twitched and he was speechless. Seeing that Qin Feiyang was alone, a young man in his 20s at the table next to him held a wine glass. He gathered his courage and nervously walked over to Qin Feiyang's side. He smiled obsequiously and said, "Lord Qin, may I have the honor of having a drink with you?" Qin Feiyang turned his head to look at the young man. I'm sorry to disturb you." Facing Qin Feiyang's gaze, the young man suddenly panicked and turned around to run away. Wait. Qin Feiyang stopped the young man. "Lord, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to," the young man hurriedly explained. "Calm down first." Qin Feiyang stopped the young man and asked seriously, "Am I really that scary?" Ha! Hearing this, the young man immediately looked at Qin Feiyang in confusion. "I'm a little puzzled. Why are you so afraid of me? I don't remember doing anything heinous in the past." Qin Feiyang frowned. No. Everyone has a good reputation for your character. Anyway, everyone knows that you are a good person," the young man hurriedly explained. Really? Qin Feiyang didn't believe it. Of course. Back then, when Yi Yuan came to harm the innocent, weren't you the ones who came forward and killed him on the spot? And now, it's you who are standing at the forefront to fight against the Divine Kingdom. Otherwise, we wouldn't have such a peaceful life now. Not only are you good people, but you are also the great people of the Sky Cloud realm, and the idols of us young people," the young man boasted. When he said these words, he was very nimble and wasn't nervous at all. One could even see a trace of pride. He was proud that the Sky Cloud realm had such geniuses. "Then why are you so afraid of me?" Qin Feiyang was curious. Isn't it because the disparity in strength is too big? Instinctively afraid. The young man smiled. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. He picked up the teacup and said, "I don't drink." The young man was stunned for a moment and immediately reacted. He quickly picked up the wine cup and clinked it with Qin Feiyang's teacup. He smiled happily and said, "It's okay. You drink tea and I drink wine." It turned out that this person wasn't that difficult to get along with. Land of Buried Gods. Outside the entrance. At this moment, the Feng people, from the reclusive old antiques to the women and children, gathered together and looked at the land of buried gods. Their faces were full of fear. This place couldn't be entered at all, not to mention recuperating here. Fortunately, the battle not long ago happened in the core area. If it happened in the inner area or even the central area, the terrifying battle fluctuations were enough to kill them in minutes. "I don't want to go in again. Elders, ancestors, I beg you, please find a safe place for us. We don't dare to expect anything else. As long as we can be safe, it's fine." Many people were full of despair at this moment. Some even knelt on the ground and cried. Looking at the desperate people in front of them, the group of old antiques was also extremely painful. They also wanted to find a safe place, but could they find it? The Feather Emperor went to beg. The Blood Ancestor went to beg. The Little Rabbit went to beg. The Kirin clan also went to beg. But no force was willing to give them a place. The Sky Cloud realm was so big, but there was no place for the Feng people. They were also desperate. But things had come to this. What could they do? At the same time, not far away, on a mountain peak, Fire Dance stood on the edge of the cliff and looked at the helpless faces. Her expression was incomparably complicated. If back then, if one of these people could stand up for her, she wouldn't have left the Feng people sadly. She did not feel guilty about the current phoenixes, nor did she blame herself, because they only had themselves to blame. But, after all, they were all her people. Blood was thicker than water. Seeing the Feng people fall to this point, especially those helpless children, she couldn't bear it. "No. I can't be so merciful anymore. When I left, no one asked me to stay, and no one stood up for me. Now do I have to sympathize with them? I should be happy about their fate today. Fire Dance quickly killed the sympathy in her heart and turned to leave. But at this moment, a teenager saw her and exclaimed, "It's Sister Fire Dance." Fire Dance. The people of the Feng people all looked at the mountain peak that the teenager was pointing at. When they saw the familiar figure, the group was immediately overjoyed. Hu Dahong hurriedly chased after her. The white-haired old woman and the white-haired old man also quickly followed with a group of elders and antiques. Needless to say, the other clansmen naturally didn't need to say. They rushed toward Fire Dance, as if they were grasping at a life-saving straw. Fire Dance's expression froze. But in the end she didn't stop. Instead, she quickened her pace. "Wu, don't go. Take it as Grandpa begging you. Can you listen to Grandpa for a while?" Hu Dahong cried out in pain. "Sister Fire Dance, don't go, okay? We need you. Please don't abandon us." Many children also began to shout loudly. Fire Dance clenched her hands tightly. Her eyes showed that she was struggling. Finally, she slowly stopped and turned to look at the group of clansmen. Her eyes were slightly cold. Chapter 39-32. Wu, it's all Grandpa's fault. Whether it's the Sky Bell Divine Treasure or hell, Grandpa shouldn't have been so selfish. Grandpa has already acknowledged his mistake and promised to repent. Wu, no matter what happens, we're still a family. I'm your grandfather, and you're my granddaughter. Blood is thicker than water. Hu Dahong ran to Hu Wu and said with snot and tears. He put on a pitiful look to gain sympathy. "Yes, Wu, you know the reason why we didn't stand up for you back then. At that time, the Feng people respected Feng Ho. How would we dare to anger her? If we helped you, even we would be punished. We all know that you and your father suffered a lot at that time. But now that Feng Ho is dead, it's time for you and your father to come back." The group of old antiques spoke one after another. Even the old antiques of the Ice Phoenix clan had a pleading look. These days they had experienced what true despair was. The Feng people couldn't do without someone to lead them. They would die sooner or later. Now, the only person who had the ability to lead the Feng people was Hu Wu. "Are you done?" Hu Wu asked. Everyone nodded. Hu Wu glanced at the group of old antiques and shook her head. "You've been talking for so long because you want to express one thing. The Feng people are in trouble and need someone to help you. I'm the only person you can find now and the only person who can help you. Yes. The Feng people need your help now. We've hurt you in the past, but we're still a family. Isn't it normal for a family to quarrel?" Hu Dahong said. "Is this just quarreling?" Hu Wu glanced at Hu Dahong and said angrily. "When Feng Ho snatched my inheritance, what were you doing? When Feng Ho asked Bing Changtian to monitor me, what were you doing? Later, when I fell out with Feng Ho, even my father stood by my side resolutely. What were you doing?" A series of questions left Hu Dahong speechless. "Let me tell you. Not only did you not speak up for your own granddaughter, you even helped Feng Ho and tried to kill me. If it's really my fault, I admit it. But ask yourself, is this my fault? You clearly knew that the person in the wrong was Feng Ho, yet you continued to help Feng Ho target me. Did you treat me as your granddaughter or family at that time?" Fire Dance sneered at Hu Dahong. She then looked at the other members of the Fire Phoenix clan. "And you guys? All of you are the same as me, members of the Fire Phoenix clan. I can understand why the Ice Phoenix clan would treat me like this. After all, the Ice Phoenix clan and our Fire Phoenix clan have a grudge to begin with. But what about you? As a member of the Fire Phoenix clan, even you treat me like this. I don't expect you to stand with me against Feng Ho, but you should at least speak up for me." "But did you say that? Back then, in that hall, I was like a rat crossing the street. You all tried to kill me. Is this the so-called kinship you speak of? Blood is thicker than water? Don't you think it's ridiculous?" Fire Dance scolded mercilessly. The resentment that had been suppressed in her heart for many years was finally vented. The white-haired old woman, the white-haired old man, and the others lowered their heads in shame. "Actually, in the end, you all are just jealous. Jealous that I, a junior, have the ultimate profundity of the strongest law. You don't want my strength to surpass yours, because in this way, I have more say in the Feng people than you. I'll give you 2 words, selfish." Fire Dance's face was full of mockery. The group of old antiques looked ashamed. As expected, the rise of the human race is not without reason. Because the human race has respected seniors like the Azure Dragon and the Blood Ancestor, they can selflessly give their inheritance to the younger generation. They are willing to step down from the stage and let the younger generation break through. However, the older generation of the Feng people only sees their own interests. To be honest, even if the Feng people perish, no one will feel pity. Fire Dance shook her head. Or, aren't you going overboard with your words? The Feng people are your home. How can you say that they will perish? If it were in the past, the group of old antiques would have been furious on the spot. However, now they all tried to persuade her tactfully, afraid that they would anger her. Is it overboard? I don't think it's overboard at all. I don't want to say anything else. I just want to ask you one thing. If I didn't have a good relationship with Qin Feiyang and the others today, if I didn't have such strong strength, would you come and look for me? Fire Dance looked at the group of people and asked. The group of people lowered their heads and remained silent. Let me answer you. You wouldn't. It's very simple. In the years that my father and I left the Feng people, not a single one of you came to greet us or show concern for us. If the dragons hadn't chased you out of the phoenix nest and made you homeless, you would never have thought of us. This is your attitude. So why should I help you now? Fire Dance sneered. Yes, it's all our fault. We'll change. As long as you can come back, we'll listen to you from now on. Or, everyone makes mistakes. Can't you just give us a chance? I'll kneel and beg you. The white-haired old man gritted his teeth and knelt in the air with a plop. Or, I'll kneel and beg you too. Come back. The white-haired old woman also knelt. When the people behind saw this, they also knelt in the air. The people of the Ice Phoenix clan looked at each other, and finally knelt down slowly with pleading faces. Hua Dahong looked at the people behind him and roared. Our people have already knelt to you. Can't you forgive them? If this isn't enough, Grandpa will also kneel and beg you. How about that? After saying that, Hua Dahong also knelt in the air. Fire Dance waved her hand and a power of law appeared, blocking Hua Dahong's knees. She shook her head and said, You're my grandpa. I can't bear this kneel. It's impossible for me to forgive you. When everyone heard this, they fell into despair again. However, you can go to the core area to find my father. If he forgives you, then I can help you find a place to cultivate in the Sky Cloud realm. As for the Phoenix Nest, it's now the territory of the dragons. You can never go back. After saying that, Fire Dance turned around and left without looking back. Hua Dahong looked at Fire Dance's back with a face full of regret. He turned to the white-haired old woman and asked, What should we do? What else can we do? The other people will stay here and wait. All of us old antiques will go to the core area and ask for Hua Wenchang's forgiveness. The white-haired old woman stood up and said, I don't have any extravagant hopes now. It's enough to have a place to cultivate. The white-haired old man sighed and stood up. He looked at the other old antiques and said, Let's go to the core area. I hope we don't meet the people of the Divine Kingdom. Immediately, the group of old antiques immediately rushed to the core area. Chapter 39-33. Tianyue Tower. At this time, Qin Feiyang was surrounded by a group of people. These people were naturally the guests of Tianyue Tower. Seeing that Qin Feiyang was so friendly, everyone let go of the burden in their hearts and ran up to toast him, including the guests in the private rooms upstairs. Of course, Qin Feiyang did not touch a single drop of wine and replaced it with tea. He had always avoided drinking wine as much as possible. He really did not like drinking it. As for why Qin Feiyang did not mind clinking glasses with everyone, it was actually to show his friendly side and tell everyone that he was not scary at all. When they saw him in the future, they should not look at him as if he was a ghost. That's enough. If you continue drinking like this, I might feel nauseous when I see tea in the future. A moment later, Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled, declining the people who continued to come up to toast him. That's great. We'll change it to drinking wine in the future. We'll treat. As soon as these words came out, it immediately caused a roar of laughter. Qin Feiyang laughed involuntarily and waved his hand, saying, "Thank you for your kindness, but I really don't like drinking wine." As he spoke, Yueqing appeared beside him with a thought. Why are there so many people here? Looking at the crowd around him, Yueqing looked extremely stunned. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, "I had nothing to do, so I chatted with them. How about it? Are you satisfied with the divine brew that you got?" "Very satisfied." Yueqing's face immediately bloomed with a smile. "Divine brew?" The people around were stunned and asked in surprise, "What divine brew?" Yueqing smiled and said, "If you want to know, quickly return to your seats." Hearing this, everyone immediately ran back to their tables and looked at Yueqing expectantly. Yueqing glanced around the room. With a wave of his hand, a jar of black tortoise divine brew appeared. Although it had been sealed for a long time, there was not a speck of dust on the wine jar. Everyone immediately stared at the wine jar. Yueqing did not explain. He slowly tore open the seal and opened the jar lid. The shadow of a dragon immediately rushed out, and a wisp of intoxicating wine fragrance instantly filled the entire Tianyue Tower. The wine turned into a dragon. This is a divine brew. In an instant, Tianyue Tower was in an uproar. Those who would enter Tianyue Tower were basically people who loved wine. After all, there were very few people like Qin Feiyang. Everyone couldn't help but swallow their saliva when they smelled the wine. Furthermore, to these people, divine wine was something that only existed in legends. It could only be imagined, but not touched. But now, there was a jar of genuine divine wine in front of them. One could imagine how tempting it was to them. This wine is called the Black Tortoise Divine Brew. I believe I don't need to introduce what level it is. Everyone already knows. From today onward, Ocean of Cloud City's Heavenly Delight Pavilion will sell 10 jars of it every month, and the highest bidder will win. Yueqing smiled. 10 jars per month? How many do you have? Everyone was shocked. If it was any other wine, he would definitely say that it was too little. They only sold 10 jars a month, and that was not even enough to fill the gaps between their teeth. But divine wine was different. Selling 10 jars of divine wine a month was an extraordinary display of generosity. Don't worry. The amount of Black Tortoise Divine Brew I have now is enough for you to drink for several thousand years. Yueqing smiled. A few thousand years. Everyone was flabbergasted. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but be stunned as well. The Black Tortoise world already had so much in stock? 12 months in a year. That was 120 jars. 10 years, 1,200 jars. 100 years, 12,000 jars. 1,000 years, 120,000 jars. A few thousand years meant a few 100,000 jars. But then he thought about it. 5,000 years passed in a day in the Black Tortoise world. So many years had passed, so it wasn't strange that Zhao Si and the others had accumulated so much. Moreover, since Matchless Divine Brew appeared, White-Eyed Wolf and the others had drunk it at most, and they'd practically given it to Rabbit and the others as well. The Black Tortoise Divine Brew had fallen to a state where no one was interested in it. Miss Yueqing, are all the Heavenly Delight Pavilions in Skycloud World limited to 10 jars a month? Or are they only limited to the Heavenly Delight Pavilion in Ocean of Cloud City? Someone asked. Of course they're only limited to the Heavenly Delight Pavilion in Ocean of Cloud City. Yueqing felt helpless. All the Heavenly Delight Pavilions in Skycloud World? How dare you say that? Do you know how many branches Heavenly Delight Pavilion has now? Just the Eastern continent alone has over 1,000 branches. There are at least 4,000 branches in all 4 continents. If all of them were to sell Black Tortoise Divine Brew, then where would they find so much? I'm still thinking of a long way to go. Now that I think about it, it isn't much. Don't worry about that for now. Hurry up and name a price. I want 2 jars. Someone shouted heroically. If you want 2 jars, then what else do we drink? If you want to do that, then I'll buy all 10 jars and make it so that you won't be able to drink a single mouthful. Immediately, someone spoke furiously. It seemed like they were competing in wealth. Don't be impatient. Don't be impatient. Only 1 jar can be purchased per person. What I mean is that so long as you've successfully purchased a jar, Then my Heavenly Delight Pavilion won't sell it to you no matter how high the price is. As for the price, soul stones and divine crystals are fine as well. It would naturally be better if I had a divine technique. Yueqing chuckled. When Qin Feiyang heard this, he immediately looked at Yueqing. She was going to help him collect divine techniques just like that? This girl was quite attentive to what he asked her to do. Even divine techniques are fine? Everyone expressed their surprise. Yes. It doesn't matter what level of divine technique it is. Yueqing smiled slightly. Okay, I'll bid now. 10 low-level divine techniques. Low-level divine techniques, you have the nerve to bid? I'll bid 10 mid-level divine techniques. In terms of wealth, I won't lose to you. 15 high-level divine techniques. Although I don't have them with me now, I can get someone to send them over immediately. Qin Feiyang's expression was extremely astonished as he watched everyone scrambling to be the first to bid. The auction had started just like that, and the price wasn't low either. Sure enough, there were many things in the world that were worthless in your eyes, but it didn't mean that they were worthless to others. For example, the undead bottleneck breaking pill. Who would have thought that the undead barrier breaking pill could be exchanged for so many law miniatures for Qin Feiyang in the Sky Bell Divine Treasury? Qin Feiyang drank the remaining tea in his cup, got up, walked to Yueqing and said in a low voice, "Then I'll leave you to your work. I'll return to the burial land of the gods first." You're leaving now? Yueqing was startled. They hadn't even had a good chat yet. I can't help it. I'm too busy. I'll come again next time when I'm free. Qin Feiyang smiled apologetically. Okay. I'll send you off. Yueqing helplessly nodded. I won't send you off. You do what you need to do. Qin Feiyang smiled and called Li Feng out. Li Feng and Yueqing were strangers. It was their first time meeting. This is my little brother, Li Feng. If there's anything in the future, I might ask him to look for you. Li Feng, this is Yueqing, the owner of Tianyue Restaurant. Qin Feiyang gave a simple introduction. I've heard a lot about you. The two cupped their hands and smiled at each other. Indeed. Li Feng's battle with the Divine Kingdom's Heaven's Pride had long been famous in the Sky Cloud realm. As the owner of Tianyue Restaurant, how could Yueqing not know? Similarly, Tianyue Restaurant had long been famous. In his early years in the Sky Cloud realm, Li Feng had also heard of the names of Yueqing and Yi Miao. It was just that he had never met them face to face before. With the appearance of Li Feng, Tianyue Restaurant also quieted down. Everyone turned their eyes to Li Feng. This person's strength was already obvious to all. But now, in front of Qin Feiyang, this person was like a child. Just how powerful was Qin Feiyang's current strength? Li Feng ignored the others and looked at Qin Feiyang. Qin Dage, are we going directly to the core area, or? Qin Feiyang nodded. Li Feng waved his hand, and a space-time passage immediately appeared. You guys continue. Qin Feiyang smiled at everyone, and turned to step into the space-time passage. Goodbye. Li Feng once again cupped his hands towards Yueqing and quickly followed in. The land of buried gods. The core area. Pei Dason had been standing in the same place, staring at the gate of the Divine Kingdom. He really didn't leave it. Young master. Brother Li Feng. With the return of Qin Feiyang and Li Feng, Pei Dason retracted his gaze, bowed respectfully to Qin Feiyang, and nodded to Li Feng with a smile. You've worked hard. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. It's my duty. Pei Dason waved his hand. Qin Feiyang glanced around and asked, Hasn't Fire Dance come back yet? No. Pei Dason shook his head. Did she really run away because of anger? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Ran away because of anger? What do you mean? Li Feng looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Why are you asking so many questions? Qin Feiyang glared at him with an awkward expression. The corner of Li Feng's mouth twitched. Did he really think of him as a child? Speaking of which, watching Yueqing auction the Black Tortoise Divine Brew, I suddenly had an idea. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and pondered. What idea? Li Feng was curious. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, then looked at Pei Dason and said, I'll have to trouble you to continue guarding here. I'll go look for the old ancestor and the others. Okay. Pei Dason nodded. If it was in the past, he might have complained in his heart. But now he would listen to Qin Feiyang unconditionally. Because ever since he followed Qin Feiyang, not only had he opened the door of potential, his strength had greatly increased, and he had also obtained the management rights of the entire Black Tortoise world. Now he was in existence revered by countless people in the Black Tortoise world. And this time, Qin Feiyang didn't forget him after returning from the Sky Bell Divine Treasury. He had already fused with the laws that he needed, the miniature versions of the 6 great laws. This was a fortune that others could only dream of. However, just as Qin Feiyang and Li Feng were about to leave, a figure descended from the sky. The 3 of them looked up. Who else could it be but Fire Dance? I thought you wouldn't come back. Qin Feiyang chuckled. You wish I wouldn't come back? Fire Dance snorted coldly. How could that be? Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed, asking, How are the Feng people now? How did you know I went to look for the Feng people? Fire Dance was stunned. Use your brain and you'll know. Qin Feiyang pointed to his head and laughed. You're smart. Fire Dance pouted, landed in front of the 3 of them, and sighed. What else can they do? Looking at me, they're all kneeling on the ground and begging. Then what's your decision? Qin Feiyang asked. I told them to come to the core area and talk to my father. Anyway, I don't want to meddle in other people's business. Is it uncomfortable to cultivate quietly and work hard to increase your strength? Fire Dance shook his head. Chapter 39-34. Li Feng sighed. Sister-in-law, if you had thought this way earlier, you wouldn't have suffered so much. Don't talk nonsense. It's all because of your sister-in-law. Fire Dance blushed. It would have happened sooner or later anyway. Li Feng chuckled. Fire Dance nodded helplessly. Yes, if I had thought this way earlier, I wouldn't have ended up in such a state. It's all in the past. Don't worry. Qin Feiyang consoled her. Li Feng rolled his eyes and smiled. Sister-in-law, I thought of an idea that can help you vent your anger. What idea? Fire Dance was suspicious. Aren't they coming to the core area? Then let's get someone to intercept them halfway and teach them a lesson. Li Feng smirked. Qin Feiyang, Fire Dance, and Pei Dason were stunned. How could they come up with such a wicked idea? Fire Dance came back to her senses and glared at Qin Feiyang. Did you see that? You've led them astray. It's none of my business. If you want to talk about a bad influence, it's the white-eyed wolf. Go and ask around. Among us, who is more wicked than the white-eyed wolf? Qin Feiyang's face darkened. How could this matter be blamed on him? Actually, I suggested this to give them a deep lesson. On the other hand, it's also to test their sincerity. If they are truly remorseful and want you to return to the Feng people, they will definitely risk their lives to come to the core area to meet you. On the contrary, if they give up halfway after encountering a little danger, it means that they are not sincere in inviting you back. Such people are not worthy of our help. Li Feng explained. After hearing the detailed explanation, Qin Feiyang smiled. Not bad. We can give it a try. Fire Dance glanced at the 2 of them, and then at Pei Dason. What do you think? What right do I have to say? Pei Dason smiled embarrassedly. I told you to speak, so just speak. Fire Dance was unhappy. Alright. Brother Li Feng's idea is indeed not bad. Because in this way, we are putting the fate of the Feng people into their own hands. It's up to them to decide. Pei Dason said. Fire Dance pondered for a moment before nodding. Alright, we'll do as you say. Qin Feiyang turned to Li Feng and asked. Who do you think we should send to test them? Of course not. I don't have the time for that. Li Feng's face was full of disdain. After pondering for a while, he said with a sly smile. Why don't we let the old poison go? Not only is this old man powerful, but his methods of torturing people are also extraordinary. Let him go. I'm afraid that the old fogies of Feng people will be driven mad by him even if they don't die. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. The old poison's methods were not to be trifled with. Isn't this a better test for them? Li Feng smirked. What do you think? Qin Feiyang looked at Fire Dance. I think it's fine. Fire Dance nodded. Okay. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. and the old poison immediately appeared in front of him. What's going on? The old poison was cultivating in seclusion. When he suddenly appeared in a strange place, he was stunned. Old poison, do me a favor. Li Feng stepped forward and wanted to put his hand on the old poison's shoulder. But when he thought that this guy was full of poison, he immediately withdrew his arm resentfully. Don't worry. I'm not poisoned now. The old poison rolled his eyes at him. Then he looked at Qin Feiyang and the other two and asked suspiciously, What favor? It's a very simple thing. It's your specialty. Li Feng gave a simple explanation of the situation. That's really my specialty. Don't worry. I guarantee that they'll be served comfortably. The old poison smiled cruelly. Don't really kill them. Li Feng hurriedly reminded him. I know. The old poison nodded. He glanced at Princess Huafeng and asked, Little girl, do you want to go and have a look? This. Fire Dance hesitated for a moment, then nodded and sighed. Let's go and have a look. I want to see with my own eyes if they are truly repentant. Then lead the way. The old poison smiled. After the two left, Qin Feiyang and Li Feng immediately went to Sky Cloud Island. Sky Cloud Island. The dark blue sea and the cool breeze made people feel relaxed and happy. However, at this moment, there was no trace of the little rabbit, the blood ancestor, or the feather emperor in the pavilion. The peak of the mountain was empty. Qin Feiyang led Li Feng into the pavilion and looked around suspiciously. Where are they? Li Feng released his divine sense and searched for a moment. He looked at Qin Feiyang and shook his head. They might be in the little rabbit's cave. Qin Feiyang muttered. He walked to the cliff and looked down at the mountain below. According to the little rabbit, this cultivation place was actually a spatial divine item. But what was inside? Why did the little rabbit never let him in? Let's go down and take a look. With a flash of light in his eyes, Qin Feiyang restrained his aura and jumped down. Seeing this, Li Feng also quickly restrained his aura. Soon, Qin Feiyang landed in front of a dark cave. This was the entrance to the cultivation place. Let's sneak in and take a look. Don't make any noise. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. The white-eyed wolf should be inside now. Li Feng nodded. Looking inside the cave, his eyes were full of curiosity. What are you guys doing? But just as the two were about to step into the cave, a voice came from inside. Their bodies stiffened. The next moment, a figure walked out from inside. It was the little rabbit. Big brother, you're here. Qin Feiyang smiled. Then where do you think Uncle Rabbit should be now? The little rabbit looked at him teasingly. I thought you went somewhere to have fun. Qin Feiyang laughed dryly. The little rabbit rolled its eyes at him. With a wave of its paw, the power of law appeared and sealed the cave. Qin Feiyang and Li Feng looked at each other helplessly. Why was it like guarding against a thief? Where's Master and Lord Feather Emperor? Li Feng was suspicious. They're at Sea Lion Island. The little rabbit replied and asked suspiciously. Do you have something to say? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled mysteriously. And it's a big matter. It concerns the future of the Sky Cloud realm. Is that so? The little rabbit looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously and said indifferently. Then let's go to the mountain peak to talk. The two followed behind the little rabbit and rushed to the mountain peak. Soon they returned to the pavilion. Li Feng, go to the Qilin sacred land and the dragon nest. Call Qi Xiaoyan and Long Chen here. This matter is related to them too. Senior brother Crazy happens to be in the dragon nest too. Call him here too. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Li Feng and smiled. Okay. Li Feng nodded and left through a space-time tunnel. Qin Feiyang then looked at the little rabbit and said, Big brother, call the old ancestor and the others here as well. It seems like something big really happened, muttered the little rabbit. She looked in the direction of Sea Lion Island and said, Old Devil King Little Yu Qin Feiyang has something to discuss. Come over. Her voice seemed to be able to travel through space-time and resound above Sea Lion Island. Little Yu Qin Feiyang blanked out. The little rabbit took out a jar of unparalleled divine brew and said while drinking, You still don't know the name of your old ancestor, right? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. His name is Qin Yu. The little rabbit said. Qin Yu. Qin Feiyang muttered and asked, "Where's the emperor?" Chua. The little rabbit was about to speak when the blood ancestor and feather emperor arrived. "Why are you looking for us?" The two walked into the pavilion with smiles on their faces. "Let's wait for Qi Xiaoyan and Long Chen to arrive first." Qin Feiyang smiled. He took out a tea set and ancient dragon god tea and started brewing tea. "You called them over?" The two blanked out and looked at the little rabbit suspiciously. He said something about the future of the Skycloud realm. "I don't know either." The little rabbit shook her head. In less than 100 breaths, a space-time tunnel appeared. Li Feng, Qi Xiaoyan, Long Chen, and Madman walked out of the tunnel one after another. "These three are here as well?" When Long Chen and Qi Xiaoyan saw the three, they were slightly stunned. They then entered the pavilion and bowed. "Greetings, seniors." The Feather Emperor nodded with a smile. They were indeed polite and cultured youngsters. This was especially true for Long Chen. With his status, there was no need for him to bow to the three of them. On the contrary, the three of them should bow to him instead. However, he was not that arrogant. "Have a seat." Qin Feiyang smiled. The group sat around the table as Qin Feiyang poured tea for them. Naturally, Madman was naturally ignored. He was like a white-eyed wolf. It would be a waste to let him drink something as good as the ancient dragon god tea. "Brother Qin, how much of the ancient dragon god tea do you have left? Come find me after you're done. Don't be shy." Qi Xiaoyan smiled. "Since you're so generous, why don't you give him one of the ancient dragon god trees?" Madman smiled. "Huh." Qi Xiaoyan was stunned. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Just pretend I didn't say anything." Qin Feiyang and the others laughed. However, when they looked at Qi Xiaoyan, they found that the current Qi Xiaoyan was somewhat different from before. There seemed to be a sense of danger around him, but it wasn't obvious. It was vague. "Why did you call us here in such a hurry?" Madman asked. Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and smiled. "Actually, it's not a big deal. I just suddenly had an idea, so I wanted to share it with you. What do you think?" "I'm all ears." Qi Xiaoyan smiled faintly. Qin Feiyang smiled. "Didn't I obtain more than 200,000 laws in the Sky Bell Divine Treasury? So many." Long Chen and Qi Xiaoyan were stunned. This was truly beyond their imagination. "It's not that bad. Even I can't use up all of them. Moreover, the people around me have also obtained the laws they need. We can't just leave the remaining hundreds of thousands of laws there, right? So I want to say that we should leave some of them in the Black Tortoise world, to benefit the people there. We should also take out some of them to benefit the people of the Skycloud world." Qin Feiyang said. "What? You want to give the laws we worked so hard to obtain to those unrelated people? Not only will I not object to giving them to the people of the Black Tortoise world, I will even support it. After all, they are our people and have helped us a lot. But I won't agree to it even if you beat me to death." Madman raised his eyebrows and immediately voted against it. Chapter 39-35. At the same time, the three of them, Qi Xiaoyan and Long Chen, were also surprised. One had to know. This was a miniature of the laws. It wasn't a cultivation technique but a divine technique. Every miniature of the laws was a great opportunity in the Skycloud realm. In all honesty, Emperor Feather and Ancestor Blood had indeed thought of this. Since they couldn't use so much, they might as well share it with everyone. As the leaders of the human race, their first consideration was to maximize the benefits. The reason they hadn't brought it up was because they were worried that Qin Feiyang wouldn't agree. They had never expected that Qin Feiyang would take the initiative to bring it up. "What about you guys?" Qin Feiyang looked at Emperor Feather and the others. "I think." Emperor Feather glanced at Madman and coughed dryly. "That's fine too. Idiot." Madman snorted. Emperor Feather smiled awkwardly. Qi Xiaoyan and Long Chen looked at each other before looking at Qin Feiyang and smiling. "Of course we can't ask for more," Madman said angrily. "Of course you can't ask for more. After all, you didn't work hard to earn it." "What do you mean?" "I have my reservations," Long Chen said. "Don't hold back. Say it now," Madman said. "Okay. Back then we also contributed in the Sky Bell Divine Treasury, okay. After all, Qi Shaoran and I were cooperating with you. And in the end, we even turned the tables on the bloodthirsty Demon King and his 2 companions and sent them to some. Qi Shaoyan, where were they sent to? Longchen looked at Qi Shaoyan and asked doubtfully. I think so. Qi Shaoyan pondered for a while before coming to a realization. The Netherland. Yes. Yes, the Netherland. Longchen nodded. He looked at Madman and said, Moreover, I was the one who helped you extort the law of slaughter back then. Isn't that a contribution? If you say so, I'll settle the score with you today. You were just cooperating with us to put on a show, but what did you get? An inheritance of the law of space, and the inheritance of the law of slaughter. I've worked so hard, but I've only obtained 3 nomological legacies. You're still talking to me about meritorious service? Where's your face? Madman said with disdain. You have to make this clear. I got it from them with my own ability. Longchen said hurriedly. Without us, would you have the chance? Madman rolled his eyes. All right. Actually, right now, be it humans or people of other races, they are all people that we need to protect. Moreover, with so many law miniatures, there is indeed no way to use them all. And Qin Feiyang also said that he would only take out a part of it. Think about it this way. If the overall strength of the Sky Cloud realm becomes stronger, won't the pressure on us decrease as well? The Blood Ancestor smiled at the Madman. You mean you agree as well? Madman asked. Yes. To tell you the truth, the Feather Emperor and I have been thinking about this for a long time. The Blood Ancestor nodded. After all this time, I'm the only one who objects? The Madman scanned the crowd. Senior brother, don't be agitated. Although it's to benefit the Sky Cloud realm, it's not to give it to them directly. Qin Feiyang smiled. Then how are you going to give it to them? The Madman frowned. This is the main reason why I called you here. I plan to do the same thing as the Black Tortoise realm, and set up something like a divine treasury in the Sky Cloud realm. It will open once every 100 years or once every 1,000 years. If they want the law miniatures, they will have to enter the divine treasury to find it. As the saying goes, life and death are ruled by fate. Whether they can obtain the miniatures or not depends on their luck. Qin Feiyang smiled. This is a good idea. On one hand, it can test their ability. On the other hand, it can also reduce the consumption of the law miniatures. The Feather Emperor's eyes lit up. That's right. Every time we open the divine treasury, we will place 2 or 3 law miniatures inside. For us, 2 or 3 law miniatures are naturally nothing. We don't even bother to look at them. But for other living beings, this is a heaven-defying fortune. Therefore, even if we open it once every 100 years, it won't consume anything. Qin Feiyang smiled. And at that time, we can also put some powerful divine arts, divine artifacts, and the like in the divine treasury. This is also a kind of fortune for everyone. Feather Emperor added. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded, turned to look at the Madman, and said with a smile, Senior brother, don't you feel a sense of accomplishment by doing this? Creating a divine treasury with your own hands, and watching countless living beings rush in one after another to compete for the divine items we left for them. Don't you feel like you control the fate of others? The Madman pondered carefully and muttered, Don't say, I do feel that way, but the next moment, with a dark face, he glared at Qin Feiyang and said, What are you thinking? Could it be that you created such a divine treasure trove just to watch them fight and fight for it? Aren't you treating life as a game? Cough cough. Qin Feiyang coughed and said speechlessly, You didn't agree just now, and now you're scolding me in the blink of an eye? Shouldn't I be scolding you? If you want me to say, since we're going to give it to them, just give it to them. Why do you have to play so many tricks? Boring. The Madman snorted. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said with a smile, Of course, treasures are for those who are capable. If you don't have the ability to fight for it, then you don't have any self-awareness. Even if such a person is killed, it won't be a pity. What the hell, you bastard? Why do I feel like you're becoming more and more like those masters? Is this something that comes out of your mouth? The Madman looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. This is the way of the world. Only the strong survive. Do you think every place is the Black Tortoise world? It's not like you haven't seen the divine treasury of the Black Tortoise world. Every time it opens, isn't there bloodshed? Let's talk about it later. These can all be controlled. For example, we can create a kind of token. When they enter the divine treasury and encounter danger, as long as they crush the token, the divine treasury will automatically send them out. Won't this guarantee their safety? Qin Feiyang smiled. That's right. This kind of thing can be changed. It's not necessary to kill each other. Of course, if they want to die, it's useless even if we stop them. The Feather Emperor smiled. If that's the case, I have no objections. Anyway, we won't need too many miniatures. The madman pondered for a moment and said. Qin Feiyang smiled and transmitted his voice. Don't worry, there's still a good show to come. What good show? The madman was suspicious. You'll know soon. Qin Feiyang smiled inwardly. Looking at Long Chen and Qi Xiaoyan, he asked, so it's decided? Long Chen asked, you mean we dragons and Qilins can also enter the divine treasury? Of course. Otherwise, why would I call you here? Qin Feiyang smiled. Then it's decided. Long Chen chuckled. Qi Xiaoyan also had a smile on his face. For the dragons and Qilins, this was a profitable business. Only a fool would oppose it. Okay, let's discuss the details. The law miniatures will be provided by my side. As for the law inheritance, the dragons and Qilins will provide it. As for the divine weapons, divine techniques and other divine items, the Feather Emperor, Blood Ancestor, and Big Brother will provide it. Qin Feiyang smiled. The madman was stunned when he heard that. The dragons and Qilins will provide the law inheritance? What's that? Law inheritance. Are you kidding? We don't have any law inheritance. Long Chen and Qi Xiaoyan looked at Qin Feiyang in astonishment. I'm not talking about the ultimate law inheritance. Let alone the two of you, none of us can provide the ultimate law inheritance. What I'm talking about is the ordinary law inheritance. For example, the land of inheritance that the dragons created in the inner region of the Yin Devil Land. Qin Feiyang smiled. The madman finally understood when he heard that. This was the rhythm of making the Dragon Clan, and the Qilin clan bleed a lot. The humans of the Sky Cloud realm almost couldn't find these inheritances. For example, the Devil Palace, Rogue Cultivator Alliance, Heavenly Palace and Deity's Palace. These four superforces that ruled the four continents also didn't have their own land of inheritance. But the dragons and Qilins were different. They had a deep foundation and a large number of inheritances in their hands. Placing these inheritances in the divine treasury was equivalent to indirectly transferring them to the human race. Because the population of the Sky Cloud realm was countless times larger than that of the dragons and Qilins, the number of humans entering the divine treasury would naturally be more than that of the dragons and Qilins. The chances of obtaining an inheritance would naturally be higher than that of the dragons and Qilins. In short, Qin Feiyang's plan was equivalent to weakening the foundation of the dragons and Qilins in disguise. The two of you, don't tell me that your race doesn't have any inheritances. Back then, old Qin and I were in the Yin Devil Land and each of us obtained an inheritance of a supreme law. Moreover, we also investigated and found that there were many such land of inheritance in the Yin Devil Land. The madman looked at the two of them and said. Qi Xiaoyan and Long Chen looked at each other with ugly expressions. They looked at Qin Feiyang and said, after all this time, you're setting a trap for us? This is what you mean by measuring the heart of a gentleman with your own mean measure. I've already taken out the law miniature, so what's the point of you taking out some inheritances? It's not like it's an inheritance of the ultimate profundity. In terms of value, an inheritance like this can't compare to the law miniature. Qin Feiyang was displeased. Even so, but if you do this, I might as well directly give these inheritances to my clansmen. Why should I give them to you? Long Chen's face darkened. There was no such thing as a free lunch. Especially when the other party was Qin Feiyang. There was definitely something fishy going on. If you say that, don't come when the divine treasury opens in the future. In any case, the dragons won't even be able to obtain a law miniature. Qin Feiyang said. Old Long, you have to think carefully. The The Skycloud realm doesn't lack people who can comprehend laws. Anyone with a little bit of talent can comprehend them. But if you go take a look at the law miniature, how many of them can comprehend it by themselves? You really won't lose out in this business. The madman laughed. Long Chen glared at the madman angrily and lowered his head in silence. Qi Xiaoyan did the same. As for Feather Emperor, Blood Ancestor, and the little rabbit, they were all silent at this moment. At the same time, they were holding back their laughter. This little bastard was indeed full of tricks. You two take your time to think about it. I'm in a hurry, Qin Feiyang said with a smile while holding a teacup and looking at Long Chen and Qi Xiaoyan. Chapter 39-36. Why do I feel like beating them up? Long Chen frowned when he saw Qin Feiyang and mad scientist's expressions. Qi Xiaoyan smiled helplessly. Right now, the two of them were really asking for a beating. Especially mad scientist. However, in the current Skycloud realm, there really wasn't anyone who had the guts to run over and beat up those two. Brother Qi, what do you think? Asked Long Chen through voice transmission. What can I say? Qi Xiaoyan smiled helplessly. Are you going to compromise like this? Asked Long Chen in astonishment. I'm different from you. Your clan is powerful. The dragons don't have the Dragon King, but because of you and your sister, they are even stronger. But the current situation of the Qilin race is similar to that of the Feng people. Therefore, if we want to survive, we have to go with the flow. Besides, it's not a loss to exchange an ordinary law inheritance for a law miniature. For the Qilin race, what they needed the most was a law miniature. Although he and the white-bearded old man had searched for law miniature wantonly in the Sky Bell Divine Treasury, they had only found a few dozen after several decades. Moreover, they were all ordinary law miniature. What could they do with these few dozen law miniature? If possible, he wanted to exchange the Qilin race's law inheritance for a law miniature from Qin Feiyang. Are you planning to stand on the same side as Qin Feiyang and the others? Asked Long Chen with a frown. Not with Qin Feiyang and the others, but with the humans. As the ancients said, all living things in the world are equal. Be it the humans or the three major races, we are all living things in this world. There is no difference between nobility and inferiority. In fact, I have always wanted to tell my clansmen not to think that they are superior to the humans just because they are a Qilin. But at that time, my words carried little weight and nobody listened to me. Besides, our joint efforts to create a divine treasury will benefit the entire Skycloud realm and all living things. This is a good thing. Since it's a good thing, why should we oppose it? Qi Xiaoyan smiled inwardly. When Long Chen heard that, he couldn't help but look at Qi Xiaoyan in a new light. It seemed like he had underestimated this person in the past. In the future, the Qilin race might rise to a higher level under this person's leadership. After weighing the matter, Qi looked at Qin Feiyang and said, I have no objections. Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other and smiled. They both looked at Long Chen, waiting for him to make a decision. If I don't agree now, I'll look like I don't like the others. Long Chen bitterly smiled. Don't make things difficult for yourself. It's all voluntary, said the madman. No. Long Chen fiercely glared at the madman. He then nodded to Qin Feiyang. I agree. But since the divine treasury was created by all of us, we have to set some rules. That's for sure. Qin Feiyang nodded. Where? Where? Who will be in charge of such an important place? Managing a divine treasury isn't a trivial matter. Because we have to hand over the inheritance of laws, and the epitome of laws to this person. This person must be someone we can trust. Moreover, this person must be selfless. Long Chen said. Everyone nodded. But to be honest, the person to manage the divine treasury was a problem that gave them a headache. Because first, this person had to be strong enough to deter all living things. Secondly, this person had to be responsible. Moreover, this person had to be someone who wasn't afraid of trouble. Because managing a divine treasury was a very troublesome matter. Qin Feiyang and the madman were definitely not interested. Especially Qin Feiyang. He was most afraid of trouble. Long Chen and Qi Xiaoyan probably weren't interested either. After all, they were busy cultivating. Only the blood ancestor, the Feather Emperor, and the little rabbit were left if they had to be strong and also have a guilty conscience. Immediately, Qin Feiyang looked at Feather Emperor and the other two. Don't look at Lord Rabbit. The little rabbit glared at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly. After spending so much time together, he naturally understood the little rabbit's personality. He was even more afraid of trouble than he was. But the Feather Emperor and the Blood Ancestor, these two were the leaders of the human race. Qi Xiaoyan and Long Chen would definitely be worried. The Feather Emperor seemed to have seen through Qin Feiyang's thoughts. He said, even if they trust us, we are not interested. Don't count on this ancestor. This ancestor is a very selfish person. The Blood Ancestor said. The so-called selfishness was just an excuse. In any case, he wasn't willing to get involved in this troublesome matter. Qin Feiyang looked at Qi Xiaoyan and Long Chen and asked with a smile, do you have any suitable candidates? Why don't you recommend them? Can you trust the person we recommend? Frankly speaking, this isn't something an ordinary person can do. Not only must they be highly respected, but they also need to be fair and honest. It's hard to find someone like that. Long Chen rubbed his forehead. Everyone lowered their heads and started muttering to themselves. Time passed silently. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang's eyes lit up. He looked at everyone and said, I have a few suitable candidates in mind. I believe none of you will object to them. I also believe that they will definitely be impartial. Who? Qi Xiaoyan and Long Chen raised their heads and looked at Qin Feiyang. The 4 guardian beasts. Qin Feiyang said. Qi Xiaoyan and Long Chen's eyes lit up when they heard that. They had long heard of the great names of the 4 great guardian beasts. Protecting the Skycloud realm was their responsibility. Moreover, the reason why the 4 great divine beasts were called guardian divine beasts was because they were highly respected and respected. Everything they did was admirable. Although the 4 guardian beasts were currently on the side of the human race, one had to know that they ultimately wanted to protect the Skycloud realm. If the dragons, the Foam people, and the Qilin race were like the human emperor in the past and prioritized protecting the world, they would definitely support the 3 races. This was the character of the 4 guardian beasts. They would support whoever loved and respected the common people. Long Chen smiled and said, if it's them, I definitely won't object. Qi Xiaoyan nodded. The 4 guardian beasts were absolutely trustworthy. But the question was, were they willing? Lunatic said, why don't we call them over and ask them face to face? I think so. Qin Feiyang nodded. He turned to Li Feng and said with a smile, go to the Sea Lion Island and bring the 4 seniors here. Okay. Li Feng quickly stood up and opened a space-time tunnel. Qin Feiyang looked at Emperor of Feathers and said with a smile, Ancestor, you don't have any objections, right? What objections can I have? I respect their choice. Besides, this is for the good of the Skycloud realm. It's not too late for me to support them. Emperor of Feathers shook his head and smiled. I think so too. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while before sighing and said, moreover, they have protected the Skycloud realm for so many years. They should put down their burdens and rest. Everyone nodded. Soon, Li Feng returned with 3 men and a woman. One of them was Elder Qing. The other 3 were a middle-aged man in white, an old man in yellow, and a woman in a fiery red dress. Even Emperor of Feathers immediately stood up and saluted the appearance of these 4 people, because whether it was the human emperor or Emperor of Feathers, they were all cultivated by the 4 guardian beasts. Elder Qing. Qin Feiyang walked to Azure Dragon and bowed. Then he looked at the other 3 and said with a smile, the 3 of you should be Black Tortoise, Vermilion Bird, and White Tiger, right? Yes. The 3 nodded. Looking at Qin Feiyang, their faces were full of admiration. Introduce us. Azure Dragon pointed at the yellow-robed old man and said with a smile, he is Black Tortoise, a somewhat stubborn old antique. Who's stubborn? The yellow-robed old man's face darkened. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, don't listen to this old man's nonsense. I'm still a reasonable old man. Qin Feiyang laughed involuntarily. Azure Dragon pointed at the middle-aged man in white and introduced, this is White Tiger, and the one next to him is Vermilion Bird. Greetings, Senior White Tiger and Senior Vermilion Bird. Qin Feiyang bowed. No need to be so polite. White Tiger was a bit cold. But Vermilion Bird was as warm as fire. For seniors, please sit. Qin Feiyang turned around and retreated to the side. Frenzy, Longchen, and Qi Xiaoyan also stood up and gave up their seats. How can I accept this? Azure Dragon shook his head. These young people in front of him were the pillars of the Sky Cloud realm. Without them, the Sky Cloud realm wouldn't have been able to stop the army of the Divine Kingdom. Just sit. What are you waiting for? Why are you being so polite to them? The little rabbit pouted. Okay. Azure Dragon nodded and sat next to the Blood Ancestor. Black Tortoise, White Tiger, and Vermilion Bird looked at each other and immediately sat down. Qin Feiyang stepped forward and poured tea for the four of them. He smiled and said, I called the four of you here because I have something to discuss with you. What is it? Azure Dragon was suspicious. Qin Feiyang explained the matter of creating the divine treasure trove in a simple manner. This is a good thing for the Sky Cloud realm. We definitely agree. Who came up with this idea? The person who came up with this idea truly has the world in his heart. When the four heard this, they were immediately full of praise. Ahem. It was me. Qin Feiyang laughed dryly. He didn't expect to be praised as soon as he arrived. Not bad, not bad. Even the cold White Tiger couldn't help but reveal a trace of a smile. Madman said, the problem now is that we need someone to manage the divine treasure. Black Tortoise was taken aback when he heard this. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and said suspiciously, Can't you manage it yourselves? Besides, you were the ones who created the divine treasure. Of course you are more suitable to manage it. I told you that you don't know anything, but you didn't believe me. These young people have to cultivate while fighting against the divine kingdom. Do they have the energy to manage this troublesome matter? Azure Dragon looked at Black Tortoise unhappily. That's true. Black Tortoise nodded and smiled apologetically at Qin Feiyang and the others. We really don't have the energy to manage it. That's why we called the four of you here. Because managing the divine treasure is not a trivial matter. We need a person of virtue and prestige who can distinguish between public and private affairs to help manage it. So we discussed for a while and thought of the four of you. Qin Feiyang smiled. Us. The four of them were stunned. Yes. I think there is no one in the Sky Cloud realm who is more respected and trustworthy than you. With you managing it, not only the human race is relieved, but the dragons and Qilins are also relieved. Qin Feiyang smiled. The four of them looked at each other. It turned out that there was a task for them. Chapter 39-37. What this junior means is that the four seniors should retire and have a good rest after guarding the Sky Cloud realm for so many years. As for managing the divine treasury, it may be a little cumbersome, but it's definitely something meaningful. Qin Feiyang persuaded. Feiyang, you don't have to persuade us. In fact, we know in our hearts that with our little strength, we can't play any role in the face of the divine kingdom. Azure Dragon shook his head and sighed. This junior doesn't mean that. Qin Feiyang hurriedly said. I know. After spending so much time with you in the Sky Bell Divine Treasury, this old man still doesn't understand you. But it's undeniable that we are indeed old and useless now. In the future, we will be the stage for you young people. Fortunately, we have you. Otherwise, we really don't know how to face the Divine Kingdom's army. Azure Dragon smiled slightly. This is what we should do. Qin Feiyang nodded. With your words, this old man won't refuse your invitation. Azure Dragon was delighted. Looking at White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise, he smiled and said, What about the three of you? Black Tortoise laughed and said, Since they trust us so much and can benefit the world, how can we refuse? All right. From now on, we will retreat behind the scenes and be their strong backing, so that they can fight on the front line without worry. Vermilion Bird thought for a while and nodded with a smile. I have no objection. On the contrary, it's exactly what I want. It's not that I'm pretentious, nor is it that we are so great. Since ancient times, we have always been worried about the Sky Cloud realm. Thinking back to the past when the dragons, Feng people, and Kirin race broke out in war with the human race, causing chaos in the Sky Cloud realm, You don't know how anxious we were at that time. But in the face of the three powerful races, we were powerless. We went to persuade them more than once, but none of the three races put us in their eyes. In the end, we had no choice but to stand on the side of the human race. To be honest, we have long been exhausted. Now we can finally unload this heavy burden and be free. For me, it's really a good thing. The most important thing is that the great races are now united against the outside world, making us feel gratified. White Tiger smiled. A complicated expression appeared on Qi Xiaoyan's face when he heard that. He bowed and said, "Seniors, I apologize on behalf of the Qilin race." Azure Dragon smiled and said, "It is the Qilin race's fortune to have a young man like you. Senior, you flatter me." Qi Xiaoyan hurriedly waved his hand. "Then it's settled. We will manage the divine treasures. We will definitely live up to your trust." The Black Tortoise said hoarsely. Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other and smiled. They had finally decided on the management candidate. Madman said, "Then let's discuss, where is the divine treasury located?" Qin Feiyang scanned the surrounding sea and said, "How about we build it in the heavenly cloud sea?" "Built in the heavenly cloud ocean? Are you trying to cause chaos in my heavenly cloud sea?" The little rabbit said angrily. The heavenly cloud sea is located at the center of the heavenly cloud realm. Moreover, there are countless sea beasts in the heavenly cloud sea. It can also serve as a natural barrier for everyone to train. Personally, I think it's a good idea. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Scram. The little rabbit glared at him. If the divine treasury was built in the heavenly cloud sea, it could forget about living in peace in the future. Big brother, why do you have to do this? Everyone has a responsibility to rise and fall. Besides, who would dare to cause trouble in the heavenly cloud sea? Moreover, the sea beasts in the heavenly cloud sea will be able to enter the divine treasury. If the divine treasury is built in the heavenly cloud sea, they will be able to enjoy the benefits of being in a favorable position. Qin Feiyang sighed helplessly. Lord Rabbit likes peace and quiet. The little rabbit snorted. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. It seemed like they were in a deadlock again. Feather Emperor pondered for a moment and nodded. The heavenly cloud sea is indeed the most ideal location because not every creature has the law of time or a space-time teleportation divine tool. If the divine treasury is built in another continent, it won't be convenient for the creatures of the other three continents to rush over. Blood Ancestor nodded. He glanced at the little rabbit and said, "How about this? Let's vote by a show of hands. The minority obeys the majority." Okay. Everyone nodded. Blood Ancestor chuckled. "Those who agree to build the divine treasury in the heavenly cloud sea, raise your hand." As his voice fell, except for the little rabbit, everyone raised their hands one after another. "Big brother, did you see that? This is the will of the people." Madman grinned. "You." The little rabbit glared at the group of people angrily. "Enough. It's all for the good of the heavenly cloud realm. Let's talk about it later." Feiyang is willing to take out the law miniature to benefit the common people. The dragons and Qilins are also willing to take out the law inheritance to make room for you in the heavenly cloud sea. So what? Feather Emperor shook his head. Okay. As long as you are happy. But Uncle Rabbit will say the ugly words first. If someone dares to kill the innocent in the heavenly cloud sea, then don't blame Uncle Rabbit for being impolite. The little rabbit coldly snorted. Everyone looked at each other and couldn't help but shake their heads and laugh. What a joke. Not to mention the future, even in the past, no one dared to kill the innocent in the heavenly cloud sea. Since it has been decided, old ancestor, you will have to trouble yourself more about the construction of the divine treasury. Qin Feiyang looked at Feather Emperor and Blood Ancestor, and said a few words before entering the Black Tortoise realm. Soon, he came out again. There was a Qianquan bag in his hand. Qin Feiyang handed the Qianquan bag to Azure Dragon and said with a smile, "I will temporarily give you 10,000 law miniature, including 100 supreme law miniature." Sure enough, he is rich. Everyone looked at each other, their faces full of wry smiles. In today's heavenly cloud realm, apart from Qin Feiyang, Who else could take out so many law miniature? Qi Xiaoyan looked at Azure Dragon's group of 4 and said, "The law inheritance of my Qilin clan is in the clan's treasury. When we return, I will have someone send it to you. No rush. Anyway, creating a divine treasury is not something that can be done in a day or two." Azure Dragon waved his hand. "The law inheritance of the dragons is also in the clan's treasury. I will go back and get it later. I will personally contribute some divine items as a support to the heavenly cloud realm." Longchen smiled slightly. With a wave of his hand, 20 palm-sized iron boxes appeared. "What are these?" Madman was curious. Longchen smiled faintly and said, "They can't be compared to you. They are just 20 Supreme Law miniature." "You actually plundered so many from the Sky Bell Divine Treasury?" Everyone looked at Longchen in surprise. Cough cough. Longchen coughed dryly to hide the embarrassment on his face. The law miniature he obtained from the Sky Bell Divine Treasury was far above Qi Xiaoyun's. That was because he had a mid-grade sovereign divine weapon. In the Sky Bell Divine Treasury, apart from the Primal Chaos Divine King and the 10 Great Devil Kings, he was an invincible existence. "No matter how you got it, I still have to thank you." Azure Dragon put away the 20 iron boxes and looked at Longchen gratefully. "It's fine. It's just a small token of my appreciation." Longchen waved his hand and smiled. He looked at everyone and said, "Since we have already discussed it, I will go back first. I will also take my leave first." Qi Xiaoyan also cupped his hands and smiled at everyone. "Okay." Everyone waited. Qin Feiyang suddenly said, "Brother Long, wait a moment. We still have a private matter to discuss." "Madman is looking for me for a private matter?" Longchen was taken aback and asked. "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. "This is not a trivial matter. I need to think about it." Longchen pondered for a moment and shook his head. "You are not afraid, are you?" Madman laughed. "I won't deny it." Longchen smiled and opened a space-time tunnel before leaving. Qi Xiaoyan looked at Qin Feiyang's group of 3 suspiciously before activating a space-time teleportation divine tool and leaving as well. "Feiyang, what are you and Longchen planning?" Feather Emperor looked at Qin Feiyang and Madman suspiciously. "Nothing." Qin Feiyang waved his hand. "For real?" Feather Emperor did not believe it. Let alone Feather Emperor, no one present believed it. From Longchen's tone, something was definitely going on. Moreover, it was not a trivial matter. "You don't have to worry about this. All right." When Senior Brother went to bring the Blood Devils back to the Skycloud realm, he also went to Great Qin. The old ancestor is indeed in Great Qin. Moreover, his cultivation has indeed fallen to the initial stage of the sovereign realm. Qin Feiyang said. Feather Emperor, Blood Ancestor, and the little rabbit frowned. "Where is Yinxiang now?" asked the little rabbit. "The Black Tortoise Realm. An inheritance fused with 3 ultimate profundities," Qin Feiyang said. Blood Ancestor sighed. "In that case, it is very likely that he is the reincarnation of the human emperor." "What? Xiang is the reincarnation of the human emperor?" The 4 divine beasts were shocked. "Don't get too excited. This is only our guess. We haven't confirmed it yet." Feather Emperor waved his hand. Then he thought of something and looked at Madman. "Oh right. Here, take this." As he spoke, he waved his hand, and a divine might surged out. The next instant, a palm-sized ancient pagoda appeared before him. It was glowing with blood-red radiance. Blood Devil Pagoda. Madman's eyes lit up as he took out the 2 Blood Devil pearls. Boom. When the pearls fused with the Blood Devil Pagoda, a terrifying sovereign's might erupted. It was indeed a sovereign weapon. "I finally have a sovereign weapon that belongs to me," said Madman with a smile. He waved his hand, and the Blood Devil Pagoda appeared before him. The divine might gradually retracted before it disappeared into Madman's body. Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and looked at Feather Emperor. "Don't tell me that the 2 ancestors are with you now." "Don't worry about that." Feather Emperor waved his hand and looked at Madman. "You have used up the badge, right? It's time to return it to me." Madman took out the badge. Qin Feiyang snatched it over and grinned. "Wouldn't it be a waste to leave such a good thing in your hands? I'll take it. Goodbye." Then he grabbed Madman and disappeared into the sea ahead. Li Feng hurriedly followed. Brat. Feather Emperor was stunned. When he came back to his senses, the two were already gone. He couldn't help but curse. Chapter 39-38. In the distance. Above an island. Qin Feiyang played with the badge in his hand. Frenzy and Li Feng looked at each other speechlessly. Why did they feel that Qin Feiyang was like a bandit? I can feel that this thing will definitely help us after we enter the Divine Kingdom. Qin Feiyang turned to look at the two and said with a smile. Then he carefully put it away. Longchen hasn't confirmed it yet. Frenzy pursed his lips and asked. By the way, have you found that young man? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and said helplessly. He also said that he needs to consider it. These people are not on the same side as us after all. Frenzy shook his head and sighed. We are not on the same side as them. We can only try our best to persuade them. We can't force them. Let's go back to the land of buried gods and see how the old poison has tormented the Feng people. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Moreover, entering the Divine Kingdom was only a preliminary plan at the moment. It wasn't to the point where he had to go. Tormenting the Feng people? Frenzy was stunned. You'll know later. Qin Feiyang looked at Li Feng. Li Feng waved his hand, and a space-time tunnel appeared. The three of them immediately landed in the core area. A battle fluctuation immediately came. Qin Feiyang and the other two were stunned and quickly looked around. There was a battle? Could it be that someone from the Divine Kingdom had come again? Immediately. Not far away, they saw two figures fighting against each other. One of them was Pei Dason. The other person. But when he saw the face of the person fighting Pei Dason, Qin Feiyang was stunned. This person really didn't die. It was a young man with a tall figure and an extraordinary temperament. It was the blue-haired young man who died in Longqin's hands last time. Qin Dage Frenzy look. Li Feng stared at the sky. Qin Feiyang and Frenzy looked up and were shocked. They saw 9 figures standing in the sky. They were all familiar faces. There was Ryuko with the purple-gold divine dragon, as well as the other 8 geniuses who had followed Ryuko and the blue-haired youth to the Sky Cloud realm. The top 10 geniuses were here again? When Qin Feiyang and the other two appeared, Ryuko's group of 9, as well as the blue-haired youth fighting with Pei Dason, immediately looked at the three of them. Li Feng. Killing intent flickered in their eyes. On the other hand, Qin Feiyang and the madman were treated as air and ignored by them. Young master. Pei Dason also saw Qin Feiyang and was overjoyed. He quickly flew towards Qin Feiyang and the other two. You want to leave? The blue-haired youth's killing intent surged as he charged towards Pei Dason. Previously, he had been torturing Pei Dason to vent the resentment he had suffered at the hands of Longqin. Because of this, right now, Pei Dason was in an extremely sorry state. There were countless wounds on his body, and he was dripping with blood. One could even clearly see the bones in his flesh. Li Feng! Qin Feiyang shouted. Killing intent flashed in Li Feng's eyes and he immediately rushed over to rescue him. But Pei Dason was right in front of the blue-haired youth. Even if Li Feng rushed over at full speed, he wouldn't be able to save him in time. Boom! As the blue-haired youth's palm landed, Pei Dason's broken body was shattered on the spot. And with the shattering of the body, a horsetail whisk appeared. The horsetail whisk wrapped around Pei Dason's divine soul and swept towards Qin Feiyang like lightning. You still have a sovereign divine weapon? The blue-haired youth raised his eyebrows, somewhat surprised. After being tortured for so long, he actually didn't use the sovereign divine weapon. Was he that afraid of breaking the agreement? You really don't know what's good for you. Li Feng glanced at Pei Dason's divine soul and activated his ultimate meaning. Murderous intent filled the sky as he charged towards the blue-haired youth. However, the blue-haired youth didn't fight. He leaped into the air like lightning and landed beside Ryuko's group of 9. He wasn't stupid. He already knew Li Feng's means. One person couldn't be Li Feng's opponent at all. At the same time, Li Feng raised his eyebrows and looked up at the 10 people. He didn't charge forward. Of course, he wasn't stupid. These were all elites of the Divine Kingdom. No matter how strong he was, he couldn't fight against 10 of them alone. Especially Ryuko, who had 3,000 incarnations. Soon. The horsetail whisk carried Pei Dacen's divine soul to Qin Feiyang's side. Young master, I didn't break the agreement. I didn't use the horsetail whisk. Pei Dacen's divine soul turned into a human form and stood in front of Qin Feiyang with his head lowered. Young master. The 10 people in the sky heard this name again and couldn't help but look at Qin Feiyang. When Ryuko's eyes fell on Qin Feiyang, he didn't pay much attention at first, but an inexplicable feeling suddenly appeared in his heart. But Qin Feiyang didn't pay attention to them. He looked at Pei Dacen and said angrily, I can see that you didn't break the agreement. But didn't I tell you to use the horsetail whisk to take you away when you're in danger? Why do you still want to fight with them? If you die here, how am I going to explain it to your father? I didn't want to fight with them. When I saw them appear, I immediately hid, but I didn't expect that I would still be found by them. Pei Dacen hurriedly explained. Hearing this, the anger on Qin Feiyang's face didn't disappear. Instead, it became even more intense. He said in a deep voice, How long did he torture you? About 500 to 600 seconds. Pei Dacen said truthfully. 500 to 600 seconds. Qin Feiyang murmured and slowly clenched his hands. This is too much. Li Feng walked over and immediately looked up at the blue-haired young man. He said angrily, I don't know if a Taoist can be killed but not humiliated. If I had known that he was one of you, I would never have tortured him like this. I would have destroyed his cultivation first and imprisoned him in a divine artifact. When I have time in the future, I will torture him and let him experience the feeling of living a life worse than death. The blue-haired young man sneered. As soon as these words came out, not to mention Li Feng, even Madman's face became gloomy. Phew. Qin Feiyang let out a breath and smiled at Pei Dacen. Go to the Black Tortoise world to recuperate. Okay. Pei Dacen nodded. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and the horsetail whisked and Pei Dacen disappeared. Then Qin Feiyang looked up at the blue-haired young man with a smile on his face. Those who knew Qin Feiyang knew that he was angry. What's going on? Ryuko had been looking at Qin Feiyang. Why did he feel an inexplicable sense of familiarity from this person? Buzz. At this moment, a space-time tunnel appeared in the sky. A group of people rushed out. It was Jiang Chun and Jiang Xing who had escaped. The remaining people were the remaining hundreds of God-race geniuses. Greetings, Ryuko. Jiang Chun and Jiang Xing walked over and cupped their hands. Yes. Ryuko nodded. He looked at the two and the hundreds of people around Jiang Chun and Jiang Xing and asked, Are you all right? Everyone shook their heads. Jiang Chun asked, By the way, how is Jiang Yunshuang now? His face was full of concern. She's still rebuilding her body. She's fine now. Ryuko waved his hand. That's good. Jiang Chun heaved a sigh of relief. Jiang Xing quickly asked, What about her cultivation? That's right. Has her cultivation recovered yet? Jiang Chun also reacted and immediately asked. No. She needs to comprehend another law. Ryuko shook his head. Damn it, it's really a permanent deprivation. Jiang Chun and Jiang Xing immediately glared at Madman. Although this matter was done by the white-eyed wolf, Madman was also present at that time. Now that the white-eyed wolf wasn't there, they naturally vented their anger on Madman. Who exactly is the golden-winged wolf king? He actually has such an ability. The blue-haired young man and the others frowned. When they were in the Divine Kingdom, they were extremely shocked when they learned about Jiang Yunshuang's situation. Even the old antiques of the Divine Kingdom were shocked. That beast isn't here now. Jiang Chun shook his head and pointed at Madman. But this person knows him. Madman said disdainfully. You should be glad that Brother Wolf isn't here now. Otherwise, you will all follow in that woman's footsteps. Arrogant. Long Chen isn't here. Let's see what means you have to block Ryuko's 3,000 avatars. The blue-haired young man smiled proudly. Ryuko, hurry up and get rid of them. Otherwise, when Long Chen receives the news and arrives, it will be too late. The other 8 people also spoke one after another. Don't worry. Even if Long Chen receives the news now, he won't come. Even if he comes, he won't make a move. Madman looked at the group of people mockingly. What was so scary about Long Chen? Why were they so afraid of him? Last time, Long Chen made a move because he had no choice but to save Long Qin. But this time, the other party didn't have anything that could threaten Long Chen, and Qin Feiyang was present. Would Long Chen make a move? Definitely not. He would let Qin Feiyang make a move to figure out Qin Feiyang's strength. What do you mean? However, the group of people from the Divine Kingdom was puzzled by Madman's words. That's what I mean. Our people are not people you can bully. You have to pay the price for the mistakes you made before. Madman chuckled. Haha. You still dare to be arrogant when Long Chen and his sister aren't here? The blue-haired young man laughed. The law of time rolled out, and the ultimate profound instantly appeared in the sky, emitting a sharp light that could destroy the world as it charged toward Madman. Who are you being arrogant with? A monstrous murderous aura immediately emerged from Madman's body. Wang Feng, be careful. He has the ability to transform into the blood demon race, and like our god race, he can borrow a mysterious force to easily shatter the ultimate profound. Jiang Chen hurriedly reminded. We already know about this. Before we left, Ji Yanhai warned us. However, I want to see it with my own eyes. The blue-haired young man sneered. The ultimate profound of the law of time didn't stop at all, and charged toward Madman. Senior brother, don't kill this person. I want to let him know what it means to live a life worse than death. Qin Feiyang said. Understood. Madman laughed and took a step forward, but he didn't transform. The ultimate profound of the law of destruction and the law of time were both activated. Two ultimate profundities of supreme laws smashed forward with unstoppable force. Accompanied by a loud bang, the ultimate profound of the blue-haired young man was shattered on the spot. Following that, the two ultimate profound of the law of time attacked the blue-haired young man. Just as Ji Yanhai said, his strength is very strong. The other Sky Prides murmured. However, when they looked at Ryuko, they found that Ryuko was staring at Qin Feiyang. What's going on? Why is Ryuko looking at this person? They couldn't help but look at Qin Feiyang again. Apart from being a little handsome, there's nothing outstanding about him. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.